please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for war, man, forget my peace. You take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, man so tough when mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize, right girls, let her tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan, if you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that, stop that, stop that.
I'll get into National Signing Day in a second because I'm really surprised, Stugotz, that since the days when we have mocked this stuff,
yes,
we have now become this stuff that we used to mock in terms of the trafficking in high schoolers that was such an obsession when Joe Bucksbaum was a regular on sports radio. In fact, can you find me a clip? There's a clip somewhere of one of these experts being faked out by a show that was just asking about fake high school prospects, and then the expert went into whatever the spiel was on a player that didn't exist. But I have wanted to talk to Jessica for the last couple of days, wanted her here because she gets 200-yard interception returns to get her into the playoffs clearly to defeat USC, but also she has the added joy of seeing, miraculously, amazingly, the very first time the playoff system goes to a professional format that is 12 teams and allows more than any, as Miami does all of the things before the season that would have been considered a successful season, if not for the way that this ended in disaster, so that, correct me if I'm wrong, Miami's the only team anyone's really arguing about. Miami is in the spot where they're the 13th team, where the argument is about Miami or Alabama. But most people listening this would say if the playoff were somehow 13 teams, that Miami would likely be in. Or is there someone else being argued about more than Miami?
Well, I don't know if anyone's arguing more than Miami because they're the first team out right now. But I would like to posit you this team, which I don't think is getting enough arguments on their behalf. BYU. Yep. What's that about? 18? BYU 10-2. Mm-hmm. They beat SMU early in the season.
Yep.
They lost to a really hot Kansas team and to a potential conference champion ASU team late in the year. Finished the season with a win this past weekend, but they're totally out of it now. How about that?
I wanted to talk to you about how good Notre Dame is or isn't.
Let's do that first. Okay. So here's the thing, Dan. I was at my parents' house for Thanksgiving. My parents both went to Notre Dame. They're big fans. Watching football games with them, very stressful. My dad is very loud. He claps aggressively. He screams aggressively. Every time he claps, my dog jumps up and freaks out. The game, I wouldn't say it was like necessarily super stressful. Notre Dame had a 7-point lead for most of the second half, but there was a point where on offense, Notre Dame had stalled out slightly. They had a pretty bad 3-and-out late in the fourth quarter.
USC was playing with was in your field position playing for the tie. They were playing for the tie with
correct.
one of those interception returns.
Correct.
On their side of the field.
And they were picking on Christian Gray, one of the Notre Dame cornerbacks, for the whole game. He had gotten a couple pass interference penalties. He had a really great pass breakup at one point, but it was an up-and-down rocky game for him. Mayava throws it in his direction. He picks it off, runs it back for a 99-yard touchdown. Notre Dame goes up 2 touchdowns now in the fourth quarter. The very next drive, USC throws another 100-yard pick six to Xavier Watts, the reigning Bronco Nagurski Trophy winner. He runs it back for 100 yards. Notre Dame has of the 4 longest touchdown interception returns in school history. 2 of them were in that game and back-to-back plays.
2 of them were in the last couple of minutes.
And it was like the craziest thing because at one point in the game, so on the Christian Gray penalty, Mayava got called on a low block, so there was a flag, and my mom thought that the touchdown got called back, and she was complaining like, why didn't that touchdown count? And I was like, look at the score bug, it counted. They added 7 points to the score. And she's like, why didn't it count? Why didn't it count? And we were screaming at each other. And then my dad was like, be nice to your mother. And I was like, no, you've been acting like an asshole this whole game.
Whoa.
You're an asshole.
Wow.
You're freaking out my dog.
No.
You won't stop. You've been maniacally putting up Christmas decorations while you've been screaming for 3 effing hours. Don't tell me I'm an asshole. You're an asshole. And then he's like, no, be nice to your mom. And I was like, where do you think I get it from? I'm like this because of you.
Oh, wow.
He was like, you know what? You're right. And he put down his sword and he's like, you're right. I'm a bad example. And then we all made up, and then we all booked our flights to South Bend for the playoff game.
That's nice.
In 2 weeks.
Jess,
the holidays.
Tense. It was tense.
Jess, you mentioned Christian Grey, and in doing the oral history, we got to put together some supercuts, and I totally forgot about when we had Papi read passages from 50 Shades of Grey. Have you ever heard this, Jess?
No, I've never heard this.
Would you like to?
Yes.
And now, Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 121.
I want you sore, baby, he murmurs, and he continues his sweet, leisurely torment, backward, forward. Every time you move tomorrow, I want you to be reminded that I have been here, only me. You are mine.
I can't tell you how not funny that is to me.
So good.
We have about a dozen.
Play them all.
One more? One more? One more. And now, Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 75.
His lips are parted. He's waiting, coiled to strike. Desire, acute, liquid, and smoldering, combusts deep in my belly.
I think that's enough.
I kind of want to hear more.
One more.
Liquid and smoldering?
It's bad writing, Dan.
There's page 69, I
That
think.
is not what is bad about this for me.
And now, Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 437.
He's naked, except for those soft-ripped jeans. Top buttons casually undone. Jeez, he looks so freaking hot. My subconscious is frantically fanning herself, and my inner goddess is swaying and writhing to some primal carnal rhythm.
Oh my God, I forgot that in that book he has like, pardon my language, but Christian Grey has like jeans. Yeah. Like they're the jeans that he fucks in.
Yeah.
Slacks.
Slacks.
And now,
Thank you.
Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 355.
I still want more. I whisper, I know, he says. I will try. I'll blink up at him, and he relinquishes my hand and pulls at my chin, releasing my trap lip. For you, Anastasia, I will try.
What you've just conjured is something that I haven't thought about in about 47 years, which is the time that I was very scared in my childhood. I didn't want to sleep in my own room. I snuck into my parents' room. I snuck in under their bed. And something started happening that I didn't really have.
Baby.
Yeah, I was 36 years old.
47 years ago?
Big Papi.
That's why bending over hurts so much.
It's very unpleasant what you have just done there in terms of just conjuring sort of an, you know, when you move things in an attic or basement that haven't been moved a lot and there's like dust and cobwebs and stuff. You just did that around a memory that's horrifying to me that I had buried like deep, deep down.
And now, Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 69. Nice.
I grab the bag and dart into the bathroom, away from the unnerving proximity of naked Christian. Michelangelo's David has nothing on him. In the bathroom, it is all hot and steamy. I strip off my clothes and quickly clamber into the shower, anxious to be under the cleansing stream of water. It cascades over me, and I haul up my face into the welcoming torrent. I want Christian Grey. I want him badly. Simple fact. For the first time in my life, I want to go to bed with a man. I want to feel his hands and his mouth on me.
Those last two sentences were not necessary.
Just
They were in
reading the
there, I
book,
swear.
Dan. Yeah,
I mean, it's just different, though. It's not your father.
I heard
okay?
from our bosses on that one.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really?
When are we going to start telling in the oral history all of those stories?
Wait, what did you hear from them? Hey, that was really sexy. Can you do more?
Yeah,
please?
can you do more of those? More of those.
Mike,
More of
I'd
those.
like you to
We'd
come
like
up.
you for middays, is what they told me after I
I'd
played
like
it.
you to come up with a top 5 list of things that you heard about. Things that just people, I don't know about these
I'm
things.
not certain Mike can do that.
I don't know that there. I don't know.
Nothing really touches Fort Wayne, Indiana for me in that phone call. That was something.
I'd like to know more because you shield me from some of this stuff. Greg Cody is now clamoring in. He has missed all of that, thankfully, because otherwise Chris would have had to imagine his own father in some of the same positions that you guys just forced me to imagine my father. But I do have it right that Greg Cody was in yesterday, and he called the University of Miami loss an epic embarrassment. And Mike Ryan flip-flopped over the course of 2 days from we deserve to not be in the playoffs because of the epic embarrassment, because you lose 2 out of 3, you lose to Syracuse, you're a big favorite. Nobody regards Syracuse the way Mike regards Syracuse. And then Mike just goes off the deep end yesterday and becomes a shilling ambassador for all things Canes, bought and paid for, integrity in tatters, because, I'm alleging, no one has said this publicly except a hand at the end of the show yesterday, that Mario Cristobal threatened to twist the nipples of Mike Ryan if he didn't get out there and change his tone on things. And so the University of Miami is nationally getting more than BYU is in terms. BYU is suffering because it's not the program name that Miami is, and because Miami conjures, even now still, a certain thing in the country, even though they haven't mattered in football this way for 20 years, the country at large is having a good argument about Miami versus Alabama, correct? Because Alabama got in just because of the regard for the SEC. The same thing that Mike Ryan has been yelling about, which is, I understand that conference's earned reputation, but it hasn't been that this year. It's just echoes and fumes like that everyone in that conference has been proven to be beatable by any number of conferences.
Yeah, you made the argument that Oklahoma State was right there with FSU and Purdue as the worst P4 program. They went winless in their Big 12. They beat Arkansas, a 6-win team that beat Tennessee. So it was what I was fearing. I did find it really interesting, Dan, that last night I was not on the popular side whatsoever, arguing that Miami should be in the playoff. But I guess that was going up against a combined bid of 3 SEC teams. When the dust settled and people realized Alabama is in ahead of Miami, and they remember, hey, 11 days ago, Alabama lost 24-3 to a bad Oklahoma team. They have one more loss, and you hear the rationale from Ward Manuel, which is, well, games against teams with a better than 500 record, Alabama is much better. Well, that's a convenient thing to cherry pick. First off, these teams are pretty close. A good tiebreaker would be wins and losses, but we're not going to do that. Fine. What about the teams that are at 500, Ward? What's Alabama's record there? And over the night, I'm really surprised that I guess people just really hate Alabama more than they hate Miami, because it feels like the nation's starting to realize, hold up, that Oklahoma loss. Wait, Miami's loss to Syracuse to bring them to 2 losses on the year, we're going to punish that more than we're going to punish Alabama's loss to a really bad Oklahoma team?
I think that Alabama gets the benefit of the doubt because they've proven this season that their ceiling is higher because they've beaten Georgia. And Miami hasn't gotten the chance to play a team like Georgia, and they haven't gotten a chance to beat a team like Georgia. So automatically, Alabama is getting slotted ahead of them because of that. And
Georgia did lose all my respect with that Georgia Tech game, though.
Yeah, but I don't think
Georgia Tech's good, dude. That's what I've been trying to argue.
No, but all I'm saying is that if Georgia Tech can beat Georgia, then you can't make a convincing.
They can't because they can't score 2 points. That was so frustrating to watch. Brent Key lost all of my respect in that game.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well,
that was so pathetic to watch. He didn't know the rules. He put up a 1 in the second overtime. You can't kick an extra point in the second overtime. Learn the rules. My God.
Watching that game at a bar on mute was really confusing, watching Brent Key go through that. But it's actually pretty unfortunate because I was really invested in that ACC-SEC matchup on Friday, and it turns out that could be the reason why Miami is out. Georgia Tech blowing the 14-point lead and all those calls that went Georgia's way there, because if Georgia loses that game, Alabama's big signature win that everyone says, okay, well, that's their ceiling, they've proven that they can match it, becomes really diluted, and then the loss to Georgia Tech, all of a sudden Miami's got 2 losses, both to ranked teams. I understand the Alabama argument. They showed what their ceiling could be. Unfortunately for Miami, they didn't get an opportunity to. Here's another tiebreaker that I've been told that the CFP usually considers, and that's common opponents. All right, so you have a Miami team that has a better record than Alabama. They both played a USF team. I know September does not exist in the eyes of the SEC, but in September, they both played USF. Who looked better against USF? Clearly, Miami did. So it's unfortunate that we just keep shifting the barometers in which we do this.
But what was the final score of the Alabama USF game?
No, I understand how they pulled away.
It was
but,
like 42-14 or something.
But was it? I know Miami looked much better, and the final score was much better.
Well, now we're
against
going
USF.
down to like how much better did they look quarter to quarter to quarter, which I think is different. I also don't think Georgia Tech would be ranked if they beat Georgia because
You don't
they
think so? There were others receiving
at 8
votes.
And 4,
There were
I'm
others
not
receiving
100%.
votes.
I'm just saying I'm not 100% sure. They might sneak in, but
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
Look, I think ultimately I'm trying to rationalize. I know why Miami is out. Miami is out because they blew a 21-point lead to Syracuse. It's a huge bummer for me in that Miami, if I told you before the season, as you alluded to, Dan, you're going to go 10-2, and you're going to lose 2 games to Georgia Tech and Syracuse, which are games that I looked at the schedule. I'm like, yeah, those are tricky spots inside this conference. And you're going to lose those games by a combined 9 points. And you're not going to get into Charlotte, and subsequently you're not going to get into the CFP. And you're going to have a Heisman finalist. You're going to have the top offense in the nation. This season should feel a lot better than it does right now, and that's a huge bummer because Miami pretty much did all the right things except hold on to a big lead.
Stop being a homer,
Mike.
I thought that was pretty calm and rational. I thought I did well. You just were sitting on that one,
Yeah,
huh?
I had the sound. I got to hit.
But as it relates to Miami and Alabama, this is about the Alabama wins, is it not? I mean, they beat Georgia, they beat South Carolina, they beat LSU at a time LSU was ranked in the top 10.
Don't do the LSU trick. Like, that infuriates me. Like, they all get fat on LSU inexplicably being ranked in the mid-teens, and then everybody beats up on LSU and takes credit for it. I guess a big win is huge. Yeah, it's wonderful. They lost to Vanderbilt and they lost to Oklahoma, and they didn't just lose to Oklahoma. They got figured out.
I
want
to talk about that in a second, but Jessica, you wanted to get in here.
I think, Mike, at the end of the day, there's 2 things you should be angry about. One, obviously, blowing a 21-point lead against Syracuse and then kicking a field goal down 7 at the end of the game. Those are things that you should be mad about. Second, Stanford. Yep. Let me tell you why. Yeah. Because Stanford beat Louisville in the dumbest way possible. I guess you should really be mad at Louisville, but mostly Stanford, because screw them and screw their stupid tree. They beat Louisville in this dumb career-high field goal at the end of the game because Louisville got an unsportsmanlike penalty and put them in field goal range, and then they jumped off sides, and it was so stupid. And they also beat Syracuse inexplicably at the beginning of the season. Stanford is bad, okay? And Stanford is single-handedly the reason that there's not more ACC teams ranked right now. So screw Stanford. Who decided to let Stanford into... Oh, I guess that would be Miami and all the other ACC
all the other schools and SMU.
Damn it!
And it's kind of funny for me to argue, man, this conference is really hard when SMU just strolls into it and goes to the conference championship in its first year.
Almost like that American Athletic Conference was pretty competitive for the last several years.
This guy's just been
no
waiting.
One's thinking about you right now, dude. No one's thinking about
I
you.
love your transitive property argument. It's my favorite.
Well, I think, look, Mizzou was inexplicably ranked at several points in this season. You give Mizzou's resume to Duke, Duke is still unranked. Duke should have been ranked, but look, these are all based on preseason rankings. Most of these riders are bought and paid for when it comes to their job, depending on the SEC working out. And Miami just ran into that kind of buzzsaw. They had an opportunity there for themselves, up 21-0. They blew it. It's a damn shame because Miami is a really fun team to watch. Best offense in the nation. Only lost 2 games by combined 9 points. You'd think that'd be good enough. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It's a huge bummer, and this season should feel better to me, but it doesn't.
I will tell you again, it's a made-for-television event, and while I would want to watch the best offense in the sport and Cam Ward play one more game, the nation will have its regard for Alabama, and there's a whole generation that doesn't have any understanding that Miami used to be good. An entire generation, 20 years. So Alabama is getting a Lifetime Achievement Award on a made-for-television event because the argument I would make, and Jessica, you tell me if you think I have this wrong, because at the time that Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, I said to myself, even not knowing anything because it was too early in the season, okay, that's a giant upset. That's probably the biggest upset there's going to be in the sport this year, winning at Notre Dame. It was the most confusing result of the season, but it was so early that I'm like, okay, well, Notre Dame must not be good if that's happening. I still don't have a sample on who everyone is. I've got a sample on Alabama, and the most confusing result to me this season, I didn't see the game. How the hell did Alabama lose that way to Oklahoma? How was the offense neutralized? What don't I know about the importance of Nick Saban's coaching that would make it so that Alabama and that quarterback, that Milroe wouldn't be able to do anything in a game against a terrible Oklahoma team? Where were the most confusing results of the season? Because that one I just didn't understand. And it was so recent that I can't believe they got forgiven for it, even though Alabama's been forgiven for any number of losses over the last few years, just because people know to put them on television.
I mean, I completely agree with you about the Oklahoma game. I think that like we talked about Alabama's ceiling being they can beat Georgia. Their floor is a lot lower than it's been in the last 10 years because that game was really bad. 3 points against Oklahoma at the end of the season is a just horrendous offensive output for Alabama, for any team. But I think that Alabama may not make it, right? Because if Clemson wins, SMU is probably going to get the spot. Clemson's going to get the bye week probably with the ACC championship game. So Alabama may not make it. And I think, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I think that if you explain to an Alabama fan you didn't make it because of the Oklahoma loss, they're probably going to nod their head and be like, you know what? That makes sense. Just like if you told me in September, or, I guess like the better example is like if Notre Dame lost to USC this past weekend, Notre Dame goes into that game knowing they're playing Southern Cal on the road. It's their rival. If they lose, they're not going to make the playoff at 10-2 because they have the Northern Illinois loss. And if you told me that and it happened, I would agree with you. Notre Dame should not make the playoff as a 2-loss team with the Northern Illinois loss. But they went into that game knowing we have to win and we're in because this will be an 11-1 season. There's not enough 11-win teams to overcome that. And so this is a win-and-you're-in situation. It's the same thing for Miami playing at Syracuse. Miami knew they had to win that conference game to make the ACC championship game. It was a play-in game for the playoff, and Miami had the lead. They had a chance to tie it late in the game, and they couldn't finish it. And that's, I think, the difference between 11-1, 10-2, and 9-3 right there.
Yeah, but I also think is that people were watching the end of that game, and people must not have been watching what happened in Oklahoma, Alabama, because you can't know what happened in that game and say to me that that's a team that deserves to be among the 12 best.
Yeah, but you can watch them play against Georgia and Tennessee and LSU and say that team could win the national championship.
They move the goalposts because it's convenient. It's convenient when September doesn't matter. And part of the argument that Lucy was making on behalf of the SEC, I think she was arguing more for South Carolina. I think we all know that South Carolina's out because they lost to Alabama, and that confuses the process. Because head-to-head has to matter. Alabama beat Georgia in September. What they did recently was put up 3 points against one of the worst Oklahoma teams of our lifetime. That happened 11 days ago. And
they also beat Mercer.
They also beat, so they climb up 3 spots because they beat Mercer, and they beat an Auburn team by 2 scores, I guess. It's a bummer. It's a huge bummer, but we knew that if it got into a situation where you're parsing the difference between Alabama and Miami, Alabama's going to win that tiebreaker because of all the SEC stuff. And it's a damn shame because Miami had it there for them. All they had to do was hold on to that lead. And ultimately, that is probably going to haunt me for years. Because that quarterback was a unicorn. This offense was one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen in the history of college football. Not Miami football. That's a certainty. Not the best in the nation. That's a certainty. One of the best of all time. It's a huge bummer that we don't get to see Cam Ward play again.
it should haunt you for years, and it should haunt Mario Cristobal for years, because they blew it, Miami. Right? Like I want to have righteous indignation on behalf of Miami. They should be ranked ahead of Alabama. And you can make a good argument that, their only 2 losses were by 9 points to good teams. That's true, but the timing of those losses was disastrous, an absolute disaster. When they blew that 21-point lead, they had no chance. There's no room. I want to have righteous indignation on behalf of Miami. It's very, very difficult the way that season ended.
I think we can all agree on this. The problem is not Miami, Alabama. The problem is Boise State. Why do we need Boise State or a team like Boise State in the playoff? I want Alabama. I want Miami. I want Alabama, Notre Dame first round. I want Miami, Georgia first round. I don't want to see Boise State.
No one wants to see What if it's Army instead? What if Army is the G5 team?
Yes.
That's different.
Thank you for your service.
You don't want to see Genty? You don't want to see Genty?
That's going to be a great game.
Mike, you're not listening to me. What I want to see is Miami and Alabama. I don't care about Genty. That's what I want to see.
But Boise State...
You should.
Well, we'll see if Boise State... UNLV is very good and has every opportunity to win that game this weekend. But right now, Boise State has 1 loss. It was a 6-point loss. Oregon needed 2 returns for a touchdown to win that game. Like, they very could have easily beaten Oregon. Their 1 loss is to the number 1 team in the nation.
Ashton Genty... statistically, the type of season he's having, he has more yards after contact rushing this year than anyone else has rushing yards in the country, period.
You should want to watch him.
Also,
I don't care about watching him. I'll watch the highlight package. They're going to have a bye the first week of the playoffs. That's absurd.
It might not.
If the Pac-12 didn't explode in the last year, they would probably be the 5th conference to get a bid into the playoff. So this is all just sort of a mess because it's all happening at once. But I just disagree with you fundamentally because I think there should be a path for a super talented top 25 G5 team to make it in, or multiple some years if one of the power conferences has a really down year. But I guess going back to Miami versus Alabama, I think that if the Syracuse game is a touchdown for touchdown shootout and Miami gets left out, and Miami still loses, of course. I understand the frustration there, but the fact that they had the 3 touchdown lead is so brutal, and the fact that Mario botched the ending so badly yet again. Someone sent me this on Blue Sky. They said the committee was afraid to see what kind of clock management Mario could be capable of in a playoff game, and that's why Miami was left out. And I think they're kidding, but I also think there might be some truth to it.
There is.
This guy has proven he cannot handle the end of game situations time and time again.
I would push back on that because Miami was in plenty of close games, and Mario Cristobal pushed all the right buttons all season long. And honestly, I reached out to some NFL people that crunched the numbers, and they say that was a 50-50 proposition. Your defense needs to stop them either way. I think the conventional wisdom is if you fail from the 12-yard line on that 4th and goal, Syracuse is a little bit more conservative, and you have a better shot at stopping them. But Syracuse was conservative when they got the ball back, and Miami couldn't stop them. Ultimately,
how much time went off the clock, though, before the field goal kick? That
before
was the other part of it, though. It was just a slow, non-urgent.
I actually don't remember that part. I might have blacked out.
The other part of that, though, because
trot.
you're talking about the
that.
late game situation there, the reason I would have gone for it on 4th and goal, because people assume if you get an incompletion there, you're still giving them the ball at the 10-yard line. No, I'm calling a play that gets me even closer to the goal line if I get the completion, so that perhaps I've got the possibility of them starting from their own 1 or their 2 or their 3.
Right. My frustration is look at what we're talking about here instead of losing to Oklahoma 24-3. Jess, I'm just curious, what would you have done if the decision were up to you? Would you have gone with South Carolina? Who would you have put in?
It's really tough because
BYU.
I think you're right about South Carolina because Alabama has the head-to-head. I don't think you can put them ahead of Alabama. And Ole Miss, I think general consensus is the Kentucky loss was disqualifying. This was a really, really bad Kentucky team.
Plus, they lost to Florida at Florida, and Miami blew Florida out.
But they also did blow out Georgia. So I understand their argument for it. I think of the 3, I get putting Alabama ahead of those 2. When it comes down to Alabama and Miami, it's tough. Syracuse, they're ranked, but they're a team that has played in some really big stinkers this season that Miami should have beaten. Same thing with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is a good team, but Miami still should have beaten them. And the way that Miami's schedule worked out, there just wasn't a chance for them to really prove it.
So you would have put Bama in?
I don't know. I mean,
You look me in the face while you break
how much
my heart.
how much does the committee get paid for this? Because if you give me that amount of money and also a weekend in at the Gaylord in Dallas, then maybe I'll give you my answer. But I'm not doing it for free. I'm not going to tell you it for free.
I mean, when we're talking about how teams are playing late in the year, we're skipping over the fact that Syracuse only beat UConn by a touchdown the week before that they beat Miami. I mean, so when we're talking about, how did Alabama or Miami look against USF for parts of quarters? Like, Syracuse barely beats UConn. I mean, we're not talking about a team that or an ACC conference.
Why is USF a measuring stick?
Well, right. Well, that's kind of my point, right? We're talking about opponents.
Right.
I mean,
It's one of the tiebreakers that they use.
Mike, I get why the
but
ACC.
24-3, dude.
I understand that, and look, it's a bad loss, but I think the committee has shown us year after year after year after year they care more about good wins than just wins. Like
They
what
care
they
about good
consider
wins
to
more
be-
than losses.
Yeah, I know.
Like, 'cause
Trust
Miami has
me, I'm
fewer
aware.
than them. Yeah.
Trust me, I'm aware. And the idea of the ACC and the SEC and the comparison. Look, you said it yourself. A team that was in the American Athletic Conference last year walked into the ACC and was their best team. And so, as much as I really like a lot of the ACC teams, and there are arguments to be made that the gap has gotten closer because of the transfer portal, etc. The reality is the SEC is still a tier above. SMU would not have walked into the SEC and had the type of season that they just did.
I mean, I just saw Texas do it, and I understand Texas is a very good team.
It's Texas, not
but
SMU.
Look, Georgia should have lost that game to Georgia Tech. They still would have been in the SEC championship. Unranked Texas A&M was a game away from being in the SEC championship. SMU strolls into Charlotte in large part due to the toughest team they played in the conference was Louisville. You had this situation with three teams.
Is that no different than Miami?
Well, no. What I'm saying, it's a byproduct of not having divisions, and
Sure.
it's unfortunate because Indiana cracked the code. Indiana's not playing really good teams inside of their conference, and they only get to have one loss
Well, that's not
despite
true.
only
They
playing.
did have to play Michigan, who did beat Ohio State. So
Yeah.
I think also
We are in the mud.
I wonder how much the close games against Virginia Tech and Cal ended up mattering at the end of the day for Miami as well, because Cal.
What about at the start of the day?
One of the worst teams at the start of the day. Good win against Florida.
But again, like we're bringing up the Cal game when we're ignoring 24-3.
I'm not ignoring that. I'm telling you, if Alabama gets left out, I totally agree with it. You're just arguing about who's ahead of who this week,
but
and I understand that.
I miss the BCS.
Here's what's happening here to me that's so funny, and I can't believe it's the Miami team that gives us this gift. Like, you guys are sitting here trying to make arguments based on merit as if merit matters. Like, to me, it's fascinating that we keep doing this stupidity when the point of this particular season is the argument. Like, it's not about the merit. So you come at me with the timing of this was disaster. Timing is not about merit. How good is your football team? Timing. You're coming at me with how it looks that they lost with a 21-point lead and the 4th and goal and the botched ending at Syracuse. The merit is what are their records and what have they done against the others? Unless when you got a bunch of murkiness, you can just make it a made-for-television event, and everybody would prefer to have Alabama, even as we make the arguments on behalf of Miami because we're myopic and because we love Cam Ward and this generational team that isn't as television friendly as Alabama is because a whole generation has watched Alabama be great at football that hasn't seen Miami be great at football.
Tone.
I think Alabama is getting huge merit points for beating Georgia, who may end up being the SEC champion. So I get your point. I think the Oklahoma loss is a very valid reason to leave them out of the playoff. No matter what happened this year, we are always going to argue about the teams on the bubble, whether it was the 12 seed, the 11 seed, the 13th ranked team, whatever. Like
you guys,
Dan, if Alabama lost to Georgia and beat Oklahoma, I don't think they'd have a great case to get in. I think Miami would be in. I think that they are just getting a ton of credit for beating who will probably be the SEC champion if they are able to, win again against Texas.
Which is why I argued if Miami's in the Big Ten or SEC, Miami has a similar year. Their 2 losses are probably considered better losses, and they actually have the opportunity because Miami certainly has a team that is certainly capable of beating the likes of Georgia or,
I think
Needed that.
you guys didn't have the ability. The sigh from Greg Cody there. I don't think that you guys had the ability during the course of this segment to make me long for my father talking about 50 Shades of Grey, but you managed it.
And now, Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 487.
These clamps are vicious. He prods the nipple clamps. We will use these. They're adjustable. Christian, my sexual mentor. My mouth is already open from panting. I open wider and he slides a large cool metal object between my shaped like an oversized baby pacifier. He has a small groove or carvings. I'm going to put this you. His fingers trail between my buttocks, spreading oil. Instantly, the plug starts to vibrate. Down there, it feels alien, full, forbidden, but oh, so good. As my body explodes, I'm nothing but sensation everywhere.
All right, I want to apologize to the audience, okay? Because every once in a while, we forget who we are around here, and we become a sports radio show arguing about sports, and we forget that Greg Cody has gotten here, and his hair is crazy, and he came in traffic. He didn't have any time for makeup, and Greg Cody's got a microphone, and he's got a thermos, and he's ready to talk. And he hasn't been allowed to talk because there's been a sports argument breaking out about college football, which is exactly what college football wants. It's a wonderful thing to have around your sport, much better than flag planting arguments that we've been having for 2 days. But once you get to telling me some guy named Ward Manuel, the University of Michigan AD.
Perfect name.
Some guy, yeah, perfect, just perfect. Like if I tell you, having seen the evolution of college football into the seismic thing that it is today, get me please that video of the left tackle for Colorado showing off a Maybach because he protects the blind side of Shedeur Sanders, because I really am just riveted, Stugotz, riveted by the professionalization of this sport, where now everybody realizes what once upon a time was the secret domain, and Cody will laugh at this, of these people in bowl committees who were the owner of your local car dealership, who would put on a loud jacket and come to our press box to eat hot dogs, and God damn it, they ran the sport.
Yes.
They knew, oh my God, I could get Tostitos to just do an infomercial, put the name on the Fiesta Bowl, and I'm going to strip clubs and steakhouses all over America. They ran the sport. Now everybody sees that they had all the money. The guys with the loud jackets who would show up in your press box and be big shots for a weekend. Look, I'm walking into sports, and I'm going to have some of your free media cookies, and I'm going to sit in the back row, and I'm going to watch the game. And you're going to think I'm an important person. They ran the sport for 30 years. They became commissioners. They became people named Ward. And now they've got all the money. Play this video for me of Shedeur Sanders. But the players and Deion Sanders realize, oh, this is the second most popular sport in America. And now the left tackle for Colorado, I can't even imagine what Texas and Ohio State are doing. But the left tackle for Colorado has a Maybach. Can you guys get me some information, please, on the Maybach and how much it costs? I mean, I know Joe Burrow bought a $3 million Batmobile. But I'd like to know more. Yeah, Joe Burrow just bought one of the 10 Christopher Nolan cars. Right? There were only 10 made. It's not street legal, right? But it is.
Can't be. Who's manufacturing this car? This was a revelation from AFC North Hard Knocks last night on HBO Max. Oh my God, what an episode!
I'm seeing that the Maybach runs from anywhere from $200K to $240K.
Yeah, reasonable.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Juju, is $200 to $240K reasonable to pay for a car? Yes or no?
You got to do that on a 3-year lease, right? I mean,
well, what is that vehicle you just showed?
It's the Batmobile. How do you not recognize the Batmobile?
Because it looks like a car that's just been in a horrific traffic accident.
I agree with Greg. Yes, that does not look like the original Batmobile. I mean,
it's the modern one. If you've seen any of the recent movies, it's the current one.
Awful.
It's ugly. Yeah.
Just terrible.
You think The Batmobile is terrible?
I think what I just saw looks like a car that's just been through a wreck.
My dad's picturing like the '90s one where it's like
Yeah.
it
The
looks
original
like
one.
It kind of looks like a Corvette, which my dad loves.
Is that like a
Corvettes.
Coupe de Ville? What is the original Batmobile?
The
It's got
original-
like the thingies on the back, right?
Well, the original Batmobile was sleek. It had sleek lines. This is just a
Like a
chaos,
tank.
chaos on wheels. That one.
Okay, let's play Joe Burrow here, the sound of him. This is a $3 million automobile. I'd like to get your review of Hard Knocks, but here's Joe Burrow telling his teammates, like, that's a pretty cool thing, right? Joe Burrow's already pretty cool. To be able to afford and to actually buy one of only 10 Christopher Nolan fans, if you're a Batman fan, let's hear Joe Burrow.
Told you I bought it.
Did you get it yet, though?
I don't get it for like a year, but I bought it.
That's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be crazy. You gotta go to the Ventures Batman where he had the ass eye thing on,
I think I gotta go all in and go for like the expensive bat
the suit and all. That's gonna be funny as hell, though. I ain't gonna lie. That's gonna be hilarious. How about that with a cape on, bro?
What if I wore it to every game? I just wore the full bat suit, Batmobile to every game. If I go crazy on Halloween after,
What?
you know,
I mean, yeah.
then I
I would be like, yeah, whatever. Getting two, yeah.
507 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I wear it again.
I wear that club.
We're being told that it's not street legal, though. He just said in there that he might drive it to the game in a bat suit. So I don't know if he's able to do that. That would be fun, though.
Are you a co-op?
I mean, he can do it illegally. He's Joe Burrow.
Right.
Like you think Joe Burrow, Kobe Bryant used to park wherever he wanted to in Los Angeles. Like he'd just park, and people knew it was Kobe's car. He would just all the
Probably
spots,
said Kobe on it, the license plate.
All the spots, like Kobe could do that all over Los Angeles. Let's discuss this for a second. At Le Batard Show, these are some of the questions. Does Joe Burrow become cooler when he buys the Batmobile? Because Greg Cody's saying it looks like a bad car. I'm like, that's a gangster move he just made. Like the idea, it is so hard these days as an athlete, if you want to show all the other athletes that you have more style than them with your automobile, like it's pretty hard to do. And he just landed one of 10 cars. And so I thought it made him cooler, but I'd like to get on a guest who can tell me more about this car. I'd like Sullivan to chase someone down because I'd like to know what this purchase is if it's 30 times more than a Maybach. Because there can't be many people in the world who are buying these cars, but I want to know who they are.
I feel like this is just a Joe Burrow is cool thing. Like if Russell Wilson does this, aren't we like laughing at it a little bit?
We mock him, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Joe
point.
Burrow can't do anything that's not cool.
I think that's a bad look for Joe Burrow.
A bad look.
That's a bad look for Joe Burrow, and it falls under the category less car buying, more winning.
Yep.
When you're the
He's playing so well.
Okay,
No, but focus on W's, Dan.
When you're the quarterback, there are two teams in the NFL that have had monstrously disappointing seasons.
You tell 'em.
San Francisco and the Batmobile owners team. And it's just a bad look to be on Hard Knocks talking about your car when your team is in the tank. I just think it's a bad look.
I mean, I'm trying to think through like a Batman Joe Burrow analogy here because Batman, like, he fights crime, he tries to do all this good, but like it's a drop in the bucket, right? Like the bad stuff keeps happening. Joe Burrow, he throws all these touchdowns, but the defense just keeps letting the other team score over and over again. And I mean, there are some similarities there in the futility of it all.
But you can't drive away, to Greg's point, from the stadium after another loss in that car.
really.
You just can't do it.
Can you, though, as the league leader in passing yards and
No.
passing touchdowns?
Not when you're 4-9.
Wait
It's
a
about
minute.
winning.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Not stats.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Can Joe Burrow make even losing cool? Because you will not tell me, okay, that if Joe Burrow drives out of that stadium, as he will, illegally, in his street illegal car through a city he owns, through a city where he is the biggest star in the town now and the biggest star in I don't know how long, maybe the biggest star Cincinnati has ever had outside of Pete Rose. Like Pete Rose was a fan of Joe Burrow's. You will not tell me that guy will leave a stadium leading the league in passing yards and touchdowns, and that street cop Stugotz will stop him on the way out of the gates in his Batmobile and say, "You, sir, are not cool. You can't leave this way. You don't have style. Your team has 4 wins."
I would say you, sir, are 4-10.
Yes. I mean, look, Joe Burrow if his team were 10-2, he would be the MVP favorite right now.
Yes.
Based on statistics. But they're not. Okay, the Batmobile, based on the season he's having, the Batmobile should be backfiring and have 2 flat tires. It's just a bad look for him because you want to go, really, you're 5 and what are you? You're 4-8, whatever their record is?
In the last 3 games, he's thrown for more than 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 1 interception in the last 3 games, and they're 0-3.
I know. The weird thing is we judge football by wins and losses, not by stats.
Not all of us do it that way.
Maybe we should just decide to put them in the playoff because
I think we
should. Yes.
Put it on the poll.
Absolutely.
Really
Good losses.
Put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Should Joe Burrow by himself be the 12th team in the playoff? Because I'd take it in his Batmobile. Just have Joe Burrow wandering around smoking cigars.
Are we, Greg? So let's say Jamar Chase has the Batmobile.
Right.
There's only so much he can do, right, as a wide receiver. Like, is this just a thing for Joe Burrow, or can a really good wide receiver on a losing team drive the Batmobile? Are they allowed to do that?
Look, I think it's a bad look to be on Hard Knocks in the middle of the season they're having, talking about a $3 million car purchase. Maybe I'm
the fact that you're thinking about that
Right.
while you're going through a 4-8 season and have lost 3
Right.
straight. Yes.
I want to give you guys some of the history here because I know Greg Cody knows it. This franchise has been a cheap and national laughingstock for decades before Joe Burrow got there. Marvin Lewis was retained simply because he was spectacularly mediocre for a consistent time. This organization, by all other NFL standards, is laughed at by the other organizations. That was enough to sink Carson Palmer at the end. He's like, get me out of here. I'm not good enough to lift this from the muck. Joe Burrow's out here, Batmobiles, leading the league in passing and touchdowns, and he's losing, but they're not sinking him.
He's so hot.
I mean, they are not killing any of his cool.
You see the mask he put
Oh
on
my
there?
God,
yeah,
He
it's
looks
crazy.
big.
You can put anything on.
Dan, all we're saying is at 4-8, you show up, nice pair of slacks and a Ford Pinto, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's
there
what
it
you
is.
do.
Thank you.
You're
And then it
4-8. I
explodes.
mean, I don't care how cool you are.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju. At 4-8, do you show up to the stadium in slacks and a Ford Pinto?
Big day for slacks on the show.
They were vindicated, though, right? They weren't actually
Slacks?
No, Ford Pintos. They were the cars that everyone thought were spontaneously combusting. In
I
the
used to
90s.
drive a Ford Pinto. It's a beautiful brown one. Yeah, one of my earliest cars. I'm a Pinto fan. Don't get me started.
Did it have a name? Do you name your cars?
I do not name my cars, no.
You never named your car.
Never name my car.
But he does do the thing where when he sees another of his cars out there, he like waves.
Yeah, we have a wave.
You're saying hi?
Yeah.
Yeah, to an old friend. Yeah.
I'm always ready to wave because I never want to be the first one to wave, but I'm always ready if the other guy waves. That's
I
it.
believe that's your whole approach to friendship. You have never made a phone call to me in your life like
Well,
that.
I mean, let's not get carried away.
So when you say don't get me started, though, I'm going to call your bluff on this. I think you're bluffing. I'm going to get you started. Tell me everything, please. I want to get you started on the Ford Pinto, your Ford Pinto.
It was my second car. Okay, my first car was a souped-up Buick Skylark with big fat racing tires. It had an aluminum block motor, and I ran it through a big giant puddle and ruined the motor. My second car was a brown Ford Pinto, which at the time just seemed like I was living large.
How old were you?
I was probably college age.
Ah, so nice.
Shag and wagon.
I mean, a big back seat. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Ford Pinto. And
You got that part.
Yeah, my third car was an orange Opel station wagon with a mountain scene in the background in the rear window.
Really?
Yeah, memories.
Delightful.
That sounds gross.
What was your 4th car?
The white van.
I had a couple of Hondas. Yeah, I had.
You had a Honda streak.
I
going
had two.
on?
Happy Honda days, by the way, guys.
I owned two
days
Hondas.
are
I owned an
gorgeous.
Accord.
Right.
And what's the lesser one than the Accord?
The Civic, the
The
little
Civic.
one.
I owned a Civic.
So that was my first car.
I upgraded to an Accord, and then I think I got into Corvetteville after that. I'm not sure.
What about the white van?
Oh yeah, the white van that my mother-in-law accused me of stealing to buy.
She had
What?
She had Alzheimer's.
Yeah, my mother-in-law at that time, she's going through some personal issues. She had, a little bit of dementia there. And one of the things she did was, in the throes of that, was accuse me of stealing money from her.
And she hated you at the end.
Well, and I tried to explain to her as much as you explain to somebody in that condition, if I'm stealing money from you, it ain't to buy a white Dodge Caravan. Trust me,
Right.
I'm going to be buying
sense,
a Batmobile or a Maybach, not a white Caravan. Anyway, car talk.
That
Fred,
kind of thing.
The only thing on fire in your Pinto was your loins, right?
Yes, exactly. Well put. I would never say
Well
that.
put, Mike.
No, he was talking to me.
Yeah,
No, I was talking to Mike about the.
Greg's loins were on fire.
So were Mike's.
Yes.
So
yes,
were Mike's.
yes.
So were Papi's. Can we play another one?
Do
of
we
those?
have
That's
more of that? Do we have? I want some more 50 Shades of Grey. I do just want for my own information, because legit confused and don't have any answers. The 3 points that Alabama put up against Oklahoma. Can you look at the game logs for me, please? Because I don't have recollection of anybody doing anything but running up and down the field on Oklahoma. So please give me some game logs on the point totals that Oklahoma has allowed to others, and then someone explain to me what they did in that game that made Alabama score only 3 points in it 11 days ago, and nobody cares and nobody remembers.
Alabama's offense has been neutralized. Like, when a defense is on that offense's ass, it looks like ass. They're limited. Just like when a team is on Miami's defense and knows exactly what to do, attack them in space, they look like ass.
But Oklahoma's defense, what I'm asking you is give me some point totals of what other teams have scored against Oklahoma.
Mississippi scored 26 against Oklahoma. Tennessee scored 25 against Oklahoma. Temple scored 3.
If you're looking for SEC teams, they gave up 21 was the least.
Oklahoma's problem is their head coach and their offense. Their head coach, Brett Venables, Venables' defense, that's a famous thing throughout college football. Like, his defense, if you bring him in, he's going to have a sound defense. Their issues were all along that offense and the fact that
Turnovers.
he runs red all the time.
It was turnovers in the second half. That's what it was. Every time it looked like Alabama was, okay, they're going to score a touchdown here. Turnover. It was interception. I think there was a pick six in there.
Yeah, it's exactly how they beat Auburn.
Very controversial call in the fourth quarter that went against Alabama. I mean, it was just a bad offensive game for Alabama. But I'm with Mike. I think Oklahoma's defense is really good. I think that one of the reasons that they've struggled so much is that their offense has been so bad at maintaining possession that their defense has just been on the field a lot this season. It's been a really, really tough season for Oklahoma offensively, and Alabama was not able to contain Oklahoma's offense, which is an insane thing to say, which also contributed to it. But really, Alabama's offense had a really bad game.
And I'm a big fan of the offensive coordinator that they brought in from Washington State, Arbuckle. And if the quarterback follows, at quarterback, not many people watch Washington State this year. I think they were exclusively on the CW. That offense was really, really fun. There wasn't much of a drop-off in terms of quarterback play and offensive output from Cam Ward. So they might fix it on the offensive side next year, but ultimately I think that hiring was a disaster in Venables, and they're going to fire him eventually.
More Papi, please.
And now, Papi reads a passage from 50 Shades of Grey, page 78.
Christian trails a spoonful of ice cream down the center of my body, across my stomach and into my navel. He kisses each of my breasts and each of my nipples hard, then follows the line of ice cream down my body and licking as he goes. This way, he murmurs, and abruptly, he me. He leans over, releases my hands, and pulls me upright so I'm practically sitting on him. He nuzzles my neck, biting down, and he flexes his hips, deliciously, slowly. Again and again, he smiles against my neck, and his fingers curl around my jaw and throat, holding me fast for a moment.
Dan, in 17 years with Nick Saban, Alabama never scored 3 or fewer points.
I'm sorry, Stugotz. I'm disoriented. Nobody warned me that anybody was doing this today. Mike has had a lot of fun with that oral history.
Oral history.
And there is Smutty Smitty. I have enjoyed the oral history, but I had not remembered any of this for good reason. This is not something that I want to think about. But every time you do this, the ones laughing hardest in here are Greg Cody and Chris Cody. Chris laughing in my face. So, Chris, I'm going to do it to you now, all right? I want to do 50 Shades of Greg.
Oh, God.
Yeah, get me some paperwork around here somewhere. Find me something that Greg can read so I can do this to you so you can see how not funny this is to do when it's your father involved. Like these things, you have to understand, I have never thought of my father this way.
I never want Greg to have a coughing fit, but if there was ever a good time, it's in the middle of one of these passages.
So get me a couple of passages that would be funny for 50 Shades of Greg, please.
Even the time you were hiding under his bed?
I don't like to remember any
You were
of
36.
This. I know. I don't like to think about any of this. I've got a question for you two. I need to tell people now before they, make all sorts of plans to drive through this Art Basel traffic. You guys were going to have a big night at a church tomorrow night, and then I'm hearing from all sorts of people yesterday on Facebook that the event was canceled. And I thought it was just, some of the stuff that happens around Stugotz where you never know if he's going to show up, and it was a bit. But you guys are now not doing this tomorrow night. The event has been canceled, and I'm assuming it's because of an act of God, and I'm assuming in a church that Stugotz would immediately burst into flames based on just his legacy upon entering a church. So this is what happened.
As I told you earlier, I requested a synagogue, and Greg wanted to watch football.
Yeah.
Okay,
got the Lions,
all right. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Chicken time. Come on. Come on.
This is all Saints fishing. It was on yesterday. It's on
Except for Stugotz.
I like that chicken.
Stugotz. Come on. People were excited. We were going to celebrate a big week of authorship and best-selling and all sorts of things at a church.
But
and
were
then
they excited enough?
Shit happens.
Yeah.
I was worried I was going to be struck by lightning walking into that church. So
right.
I was nervous about that.
I mean, truth is, the response was so overwhelming, they need to find a bigger venue.
Okay.
I mean, stadium, perhaps.
You held out for more money.
Truth is how that sentence started.
Yeah. I have
Thank you.
I have to get to this, though, because as part of this giant week that Stugotz is having, as a publishing giant who didn't read or write his own book, but is going to get all the money and the sales from his book, and it's a monster success, the audience has bought tens and tens of thousands of books. So it's been a big week for Stugotz. But on top of that, something we were talking about yesterday is, and this is, God almighty, I just can't believe that this is happening. We found the original sound, Chris. How incriminating is it? What is the original sound? Because I have not heard it, of Stugotz talking to the commissioner of baseball about this idea that the commissioner of baseball has now blatantly stolen in front of everybody. And it's a great idea, but I don't remember what Manfred's response was to this. So when you heard the sound, Chris, what did it reveal?
It revealed that, remember, we had the contentious interview with Manfred. So that's the one we combed through yesterday. We thought it was in there. We had him on apparently before that. And that's when Stugotz, before we had all the tension. So this was the interview before that. And we asked him, and it goes about how you'd expect. And Dan is kind of doing this stuff of like, oh, you're wasting the guy's time. So we're kind of, he dismisses it completely. The thing that he's open to now, he completely dismisses.
Not open to. The thing that we're accusing him publicly of stealing from Stugotz.
I have had attorneys reach out to me on social media saying they'd like to represent me, that I have a case against Major League Baseball.
Copyright case?
Yes.
I don't think you have any ownership over this particular idea, but I want to claim it nationally.
Commissioner, if I may, let me present you with a radical change.
Oh, no.
If I may.
Okay.
All right?
Oh, for the love of
I like
God.
to call it, Commissioner, I like to call it the magic at bat, okay? Now just hear me out for a second, okay?
Oh.
Commissioner, when you go to an NBA game, okay, you are guaranteed you're going to see LeBron James or Dwayne Wade or Kevin Durant or Westbrook if
Don't
they're not
waste
injured.
this man's time.
You guarantee-
He's an important man who's so important that he's got people on the line with phlegm problems that are listening in on his conversation.
But I think the commissioner will agree with me on this one. You're guaranteed to see those guys play 35, 40 minutes, which is basically like 90, 95% of the entire game.
Let's get to it.
In baseball, when I go to a Marlins game, I'm only going to see 4 at-bats at Stanton. So I want to implement what I like to call the magic at-bat, where each manager at any time during the game
for the love of God,
can go with, because, Commissioner, I'm not going to see a pitcher hit. I'm not going to see a shortstop hit. I'm going to see Stanton hit. So 4 to 5 magic at-bats for each manager, where he can put Stanton in whenever he wants. And
Speed it up!
And there's smoke, and the kids love magic,
You're
Commissioner.
wasting this man's time.
What do you think?
I'm with your friend. You're wasting my time.
Yes.
I
Why?
think that's a crazy idea.
But you would agree, more time the stars are on the field, the better for baseball.
Really? You're going to continue to argue this? You're really going to continue to argue
Let
this?
me give you a really serious answer about a suggestion like that. We are very open to the idea of making changes to the game. We see pace of game as one example of it. We see instant replay from last year as another example of it. When you make those changes, I think it's always important to ask yourself the question as to whether you are interfering with the history and the traditions of the game. And I think the suggestion that you just floated would fall squarely in the category of would interfere with the history and traditions of the game.
So that's a maybe.
No. I mean, yeah, let's get that started.
I think that's a no, actually.
A defiant and angry no.
But, Commissioner, did you hear about the smoke?
Did you hear
that
the part about the smoke? That's proof, is it not? That's
Thank you.
That's not AI.
Thank you.
That's
Yes.
I want to find myself retroactively for tone for not
You should, and no support.
Not supporting you enough. Yes, that should be a new fine. We need to come up with a whole new fine system. I ended the other fine system, so we need to come up with an enforceable fine system. I don't know how much money Greg Cody owes. He hasn't paid money in I don't know how long.
Let's keep it that way.
I don't know how to enforce any of this, but we should be enforcing something. There should be some rule from the show that gave you forbid flag planting because we love rules so much. We want more rules in sports. It's what we're about. Rules and Ward. Commissioner's named Ward.
I love
The
it.
warden.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good nickname. I think we'd agree that that's a good nickname.
Great nickname. Thank you. You're welcome.
Mike, how's the oral history going? Because I know that I have enjoyed listening, reminiscing about some of the stuff, and I know the listeners have been listening to a lot of it, so I assume you're not getting a whole lot of criticism on it.
I'm not getting a whole lot of criticism on it. One of the criticisms that I've received, very few of them on social media, is like, hey, I'm trying to listen to some of the earlier episodes. Where can I find the earlier episodes? Because it's on our main channel feed. It doesn't have its own dedicated RSS feed, and people are finding it hard to find. Go to LeBatardAF.com. We have a special page where we put together a playlist so you can listen to just the oral history episodes. It's been fun. It's been revealing. It's been like to record these a little taxing because we're covering some old that, it drums up some good memories, some not so good memories. You put yourself back in those stressful places. The next episode really covers, for me, the most stressful time in our show's history, and that'll be coming at you next Friday. But I'm really proud of it. I love the contributions. It was good to hear Old Money Charlie on the last episode and see how much he's grown from his experience with us. And I'm really grateful that the listening audience has really responded to it. And maybe at the end of all of this, we do something with these episodes that we put together, and maybe we get an audio book that's up to snuff.
I'll read it.
I don't believe that you will read it or sell it or show up to churches to celebrate it.
Synagogue would be nice.
Dan, truth be told, I did flip on my Miami CFP argument in 24 hours, and I was absolutely pressured by the powers that be at Miami.
Wait, but who's bought and paid for it?
I claimed he was bought and paid for.
Yeah, but I'm the one doing the buying and paying, and I just
true.
do what
That's
they tell
different.
me. Yeah,
You're paying and
yeah,
he's paying to be
the
bought
power
and paid
dynamic on
for.
this is
It's
really
weird.
inverted. But college athletics, we love it. But you didn't really fight for your program. I just got texted by Todd Fritz over at the Dan Patrick Show, and there's like, hey, short notice, but is there any chance that you can join us live in an hour to talk about the CFP?
Nice.
Dan, yesterday I realized after having my arm twisted by my head coach that this is a politicking game. If DeBoer's going on McAfee, we're a front-facing Miami show. We'll be damned if we let this happen. Now, we mobilized and we did what we could, and we were so close. But would you like to join Dan Patrick and for really truly argue with conviction that Miami should be in this? Because I don't actually believe you think Miami should be in it.
Well, I could absolutely and easily argue. I could absolutely muster righteous indignation on behalf of, if you're going to make it a made-for-television event, hey, how about giving me the best quarterback and the best offense and let me take my chances in a shootout game? You're going to promise me a shootout game. I can absolutely do that with conviction, but I think I'd prefer for you, Jeremy, and Jessica to make the argument on behalf of all of it, because you guys are still making merit-based arguments when I continue to look at you and be like, what are you guys talking about? Like, how do you not understand that they're going to tell you the 12th team is whatever the argument is, because you can make the argument for any 12th team, and then they're going to put Alabama on television because everybody wants to see Alabama on television.
So you want Mike to respond to Todd Fritz, I'm in, but I'm bringing Jess and Jeremy with me?
The whole show. That the whole
Oh, the
show
entirety
is
of the
about
show?
to make the argument, not just me.
I like
but-
the idea of the three of them doing it. I think the three of them are the most passionate about this, and they will help.
Well, they're the
Mike.
most passionate about college football, but Mike's the only one who's passionate about the Miami argument
Right.
of it.
I mean,
Are
it
you
was your
outsourcing
suggestion.
your own hit?
I also think, Mike, no offense to you, you did hurt the argument a little bit yesterday when you said Syracuse was as good as South Carolina and Alabama. So maybe doing a little bit more harm than good there.
My point is, there's
Got
this
carried
whole.
away.
What I hate so much about college football is the response to that is, "You're an idiot. What are you talking about? Alabama would smoke Syracuse." Really? Because if Syracuse plays Oklahoma, how does that game go? You just showed to me that you lost to 2 6-win teams. You lost to Vanderbilt as a huge favorite on the road. So don't tell me you know with full conviction that South Carolina is better than Syracuse, that Alabama is better than Syracuse, because this is the whole convenient thing that's working for the SEC. When they actually play these games, Dan, in bowl games and interconference, it doesn't hold up. Shine a light on it. Check out Ole Miss's record. 2 weeks ago, Nick Saban asked, what would Ole Miss's record be inside the Big 12? And I told you already, a team that went winless inside the Big 12 beat Arkansas, that beat Tennessee. And then the Big 12 tweeted out Ole Miss's scores against the Big 12. The Big 12 owns Ole Miss. It's convenient because everybody just thinks it's 2011 and they're the only conference that's paying players anymore. It's not. The talent has been dispersed. It's not a top 25 anymore. There are about 40 teams that on any given Saturday can beat you. So just coming at an argument to thoroughly dismiss Syracuse, a scenario in which Syracuse can beat Alabama, is not good faith.
I just dismissed them because they lost to Stanford. I think I'm actually the only person here that can be objective about this because I don't have an allegiance to any conference. I hate all conferences. This is why you guys should all just be independent because you get to choose who you play for. You get to decide who your non-conference games are. You get to decide who you play at the end of the season, the week before the playoff rankings come out. You get a choice. You get to decide what network you air on. You get to decide everything. It's great. You have independence. You have freedom. Ignore the stupid 5-team ACC deal that you made, which really at the end of the day only hurts you because Florida State stinks this year. That's another team you should be mad at, by the way, Florida State. I agree with you, though, in a lot of principle on what you're saying about the SEC. I think the SEC is probably the best conference in college football, but I don't think the gap between the SEC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC is as big as SEC fans think it is. I think that this year in particular, the argument for that is really, really, really weak. I do, though, think that South Carolina and Alabama are better than Syracuse.
That's fine, but wasn't Lane, after they lost to Kentucky, saying, like, this is this conference, like, yeah, but why don't you try to play Kentucky? And then Louisville beats Kentucky by 40. It's just very interesting that people, and quite frankly, it's a lot of ESPN personalities that don't know jack about college football that just get the headlines. It's a lot of people that casually follow. Stugotz has been saying, God bless him, do it against Alabama for 2 decades. They're not actually watching the games. Nothing sticks to the SEC. When they get called on their bullshit, it just means more, brother. Because they get to have more teams in the college football playoff, so they get more lottery tickets, so you get the confirmation bias that, look, at the end of the day, they're champions.
Hang on for one. First of all, I think the Kentucky loss did disqualify Ole Miss from the playoff. Second, I think at the point in the season in which Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, Kentucky had just come off of the Georgia game, which was extremely close. And I think that was a fair argument to make at the time. Now, Kentucky proceeded to have one of their worst seasons of all time. So that argument aged terribly. But
They're the Stanford of the SEC.
At the time, you could maybe, okay, I don't know, maybe this loss is not the worst thing ever. But now that is clearly why they're not in it anymore. I also think there's another team that should be pissed off, which is South Carolina, because if Clemson wins the ACC, South Carolina, guess what they did this past weekend? They beat Clemson.
Yeah, but again, we were having this conversation during one of the breaks, and the general attitude, Clemson, they suck. Well, what does that make South Carolina? Because Clemson threw up on themselves. They were in control of that game the entire time. Clemson kind of stole that game was kind of stolen from Clemson in that South Carolina made plays at the end, and Klubnik turns the ball over when they're already in game-tying field goal range. So if Clemson sucks, doesn't South Carolina just suck a little less ass?
No. I mean, like, I get your point in general, but they won. So, like, when you beat your rival, even if it's ugly and it goes down to the last drive, you still won the game. And, like, the exact opposite argument is what happened to Miami, where if Miami wins by 4 points, we're not like, how much better is Miami than Syracuse? We're like, well, Miami's 11-1. They're in the ACC championship game.
The argument all year was win games and you get in, and Miami was in position to do so. And look, we've long known this is not a college football playoff. This is an ESPN college football invitational. It is what it is, but they've also been consistent the whole time. The first thing that they look at is how many great wins do you have? And what they're saying for Alabama is they beat Georgia and they beat South Carolina, and those are better wins than Miami. And then after that, what they look for is good losses in their mind. But when you have the first determining factor being good wins, they have 2 ranked wins, and Miami doesn't have any.
Well, they have Missouri also.
Yeah, well, that's another thing, Missouri being ranked all season long. But I would disagree with you, Jeremy, in that what is the one thing they prioritize? It shifts. Every year it's something new. Strength of schedule didn't matter until it did. And this is not my take. This is Greg McElroy, famous Alabama grad. Like, he even admitted that the scale that this thing was judged on changed in the last few days.
There's also different committee members this year. I mean, I think that last year what happened with the playoff with Florida State getting left out, even though they won all their games, which, like, Jared Barrett, you're right. It's always been like, well, win all your games, and there's no argument about it. Well, in a 14 playoff, they got left out, and it was really stupid. And so I think a lot of credibility was lost from people that think that the committee will do anything to put SEC teams in, even though there is I'm not saying it's super legit, but there is a decent enough argument for Alabama to be over Miami this year because of Georgia.
We're parsing.
Last year, I think, is really what's tainting this entire conversation and pissing people off, rightfully so.
But you said it's an ESPN Open Invitational. If you look at the investment that ESPN has made in the ACC compared to what they've made in the SEC, all this stuff starts making a little bit more sense.
You're totally right.
The place that I'm going to need some help with, because we've got a real tension here at Meadowlark Media, as we've got rising stars and there are only so many microphones that we have, and we're trying to give them to as many people as possible. But what ends up happening is the following. I'm promising that while everything you guys just talked about is a very interesting college football argument, the weeds of it are fascinating, okay? But I sat here next to Greg Cody and Stugotz and saw that they weren't listening to a word you guys were saying, because you guys want to do this show where we're playing the sound of Ward Manuel. So I'm going to give you the show you guys want to do. Here's Ward Manuel, because sports needs more Ward.
Well, Reese, it's good to be with you again. What it came down to is, as we evaluated both teams and looked at how they rank, obviously we think highly of both teams. One's at 11, one's at 12. But what it really came down to is Alabama is 3-1 against current top 25 teams, and Miami is 0-1. Alabama is 6-1 against teams above 500, and Miami's 4-2. Both have had some losses that weren't what they wanted out of those games. But in the last 3 games, Miami has lost twice. And so for us, in evaluating their body of work, we felt that Alabama got the edge over Miami.
So the show you guys want to do, and Dan Patrick's asking me to be on it, and as I listen to you guys talk, I'm like, well, maybe we can just create these characters. Hey, anti-SEC voice, Notre Dame fan, annoying guy. And we can have them
Annoying guy.
just talk.
Just leave him alone. He just ended a point by saying I was right.
Just talk at Dan Patrick and just make his eyebrows singe with how much you've learned about college football. Or,
dude, you're really triggering me by not offering me a rebuttal.
Or, yeah, no, I know. And you were offering Ward rebuttals. I'm hearing this over 500 thing makes me crazy. While Ward was talking, attacking your. Yes, I know you've got plenty of rebuttals. That's the show you want to do.
There are 3 teams not ranked in the top 25 specifically because Miami beat them. In fact, Miami is also 3-1 when you make it a top 30. And also, is 500 not 500 and above? They lost to 2 6-6 teams here, people.
Okay, so the thing I need help with, because I'm trying to tell you guys something. Like I'm laughing at all of this because Greg Cody, the owners of local car dealerships wearing loud orange jackets who used to run this sport, gave the ACC to John Skipper, the CEO of this company. That bad ACC deal that Jessica is talking about, one of the historically worst in the history of television for the people who had value, was concocted by our CEO. Because this is all made-for-television nonsense, and you guys don't seem to understand it. As you argue about the merits of this, and the show I want to do is 50 Shades of Greg, where Greg Cody reads some of this content so that Chris Cody can feel the way I do when you play that sound of my father. Greg, what do you mean you're not going to read it? It's 50 Shades of Greg.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
I mean, live, that's a lot of pressure.
I also sent you a script via email that might be cleaner.
I saw it, and it wasn't cleaner.
Wait a minute. I've got you're refusing to do
Yes,
this?
you might have approached me about this off air.
It is graphic. Like we
do
edited.
a live show. They didn't approach me on air about playing 50 Shades of Papi. That's something they unleashed on me 3 minutes into the show.
Okay. In my dad's defense, those were edited and bleeped where needed to
we'll
be.
bleep butt plug again. Don't worry.
So we're gonna
There's
bleep
worse
it in-
than butt plug in the things that I read.
Well, why don't you come up with an old-timey word as a replacement so we can make this more appropriate?
All right, so I'll do it next. Regardless, nobody wants to do the show I want to do. Everybody wants to do their own show. We'll figure out who wins on Dan Patrick, perhaps.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
Stugotz, I feel uncomfortable whenever one of our heroes and mentors, Dan Patrick, shows up with his team, his army of professionals to request something of us, and our people start pinballing against each other to make everything right for the other Dan, the serious Dan.
Right.
And I don't like what happens around here in terms of a whole lot of frenetic planning for a segment. And I don't know how to do that segment with Dan Patrick because I'd kind of like Jeremy, Jessica, and Mike to just spill all over his show instead of us just gasbagging about college sports. But I'm also afraid that they'll get so serious that they'll do a very serious sports segment for Dan Patrick today, and I don't really want to do that either. We're teaming up and partnering with Dan Patrick and Peacock on a number of things. Mike, I don't want to announce anything
Ben, don't.
beforehand.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
I'd like to know.
There you go. That's the right judgment. Don't
tell me
announce
off
anything.
air.
There you go. In fact, don't even allude to it. Thank you.
We're making a lot of things that we want to do with Dan Patrick and his team because we're big admirers. But I don't want to take sports talk so seriously that we have to do sports talk the way that pillar of professionalism, Dan Patrick, does it. But our messiness soils his integrity and his show's name when we appear. We can't physically keep the lights on around here because he's doing it differently than we are.
Dan, he asked for you in terms of media personalities that are so closely associated with the University of Miami. You're probably number 2 behind me.
I want to throw the show to you guys as characters. We'll figure out how to do it. I don't know when we're going to do it. During the break, though, Stugotz was making a lot of Ward Manuel jokes, a lot of jokes about the name. Ward Manuel, a big surprise to me. His first name and his last name, both first names and last names, like Anderson Cooper. We were obsessed with this a couple of weeks ago. I didn't even notice it when it made its way past us here. You guys want these power brokers in college sports to continue being power brokers in college sports. These wards and these like literal wards.
What Greg and I want, we want to discuss the Golden at Bat as well, but what we want out of the committee is for whoever the head of the committee is every year to be named Ward Manuel. Whether their name is Ward Manuel or not, that's really the job title.
Yep.
You're the Ward Manuel of college football of the committee because it's a perfect name. We're not going to do better than that.
It's literally means caretaker, right? A ward, somebody.
Yeah.
The word means you're a caretaker for college sports.
Yes.
He also looks like that physically, like a bodyguard for college sports who is aged.
You're saying he's like the Dread Pirate Roberts? Like you assume the title when you get the job. there's multiple of them, right?
Yes.
You get the Ward Manual.
Right.
That's the job, the most powerful man in sports.
Yeah,
I want Reese Davis to introduce, if it's a guy named Tom Davis, to introduce him as the Ward Manual of the college football
Exactly.
committee. Yes.
And the surname works as well because a manual is your guide for how to do things right. You're opening up the manual.
Look at him.
Wow.
Look
You
at
know?
him.
Look at that.
Yes.
Words coming together.
Yes, Ward Manual.
But it's actually Ward Manuel.
It's also the old rare silent E at the end of Ward. I don't like that.
No, I don't either.
I don't like this guy
Don't trust
whatsoever.
it.
Wardy.
Don't trust it. It should be Wardy. It becomes Wardy. But
too wordy.
Stugotz is too wordy.
Yeah, a little too wordy.
Yeah.
On that name.
See what he did there?
Yeah.
You know what? That's perfect. That joke is perfect.
Thank you.
Stugotz, the golden at bat stolen from you by the commissioner of baseball.
Outrage.
How do we? Well, we've got to tell Dan Patrick about that, right? Like we've got to tell Dan. Somebody needs to make this a national controversy because we just proved it to you. Like baseball has stolen Stugotz's idea after laughing his idea out of the room, along with me, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for your support.
Yeah, really.
But we are glossing over, this is a really interesting topic and a really interesting rule change, and we're glossing over it. The first question I have is, if you are the guy that gets the golden at bat, do you go up to home plate with a gold bat? Because I think you should. If we're going to do it, let's do it. The second thing is, Dan, you have scenarios here where you can start questioning managers' decisions. They suddenly become more important. Like, why didn't he go to the golden at bat in that spot? Why did he give it to that guy and not that guy? You could have a scenario in a best-of-7 series where a guy, like back in our day with the Royals, Buddy Biancalana, was having a hell of a series. Do you use the golden at bat on a guy who's having a hot series or your actual best hitter? In the case of the Royals back then, it would have been George Brett. What a fascinating rule that I came up with for Major League Baseball.
If you're in the 7th inning and it's a big spot, do I use it now? Do I save it for the 9th
Right.
inning? Just so many decisions
I
to
mean,
make.
managers are suddenly important again.
Can I just say there's no shot that this actually happens, right?
Oh, I think it's happening.
I think he's just doing this looking for a little off season. He wants to get the sport in the news.
I got to tell you, the feedback from what I listened to, and what I listened to was the morning show on ESPN Radio, and thank you to them for giving me the credit that I deserve. They actually did. They said, this is an idea that was floated about by Stugotz, okay? Thank you. But the reception to this rule has been positive.
It's great. It's great. Now, all of a sudden, baseball embraces change. It's always been terrible at that. They wanted to put Spider-Man logo on the bases for millions and millions of dollars to sell a movie, and baseball said, no, too precious for that.
Do you think the guy should have a golden bat?
Well, not only that, Stugotz. Not only do I
Gold
endorse
helmets?
Not Stugotz.
Oh.
Yes, I would say you can't do what you're doing here more enough. Not just smoke, golden balls too throughout the at bat. Absolutely, and those
Look who's
balls,
on board now.
So now this is the
all
final
for it. No, if you're gonna baseball. If you're gonna embrace change, okay. If you're gonna make Stugotz a visionary pioneer on accepting all change, I would go ball pits in the outfield. I would go landmines in the outfield as well. If you want to really be violent, if you want to make it more, if you really want to pass football, you're gonna have to do it that way. Because look, this is in our DNA. Conquering of land and stuff, this is in our DNA. It's why we love football so much. Let's put landmines in the outfield, make it more violent. Now you got more football. Right. Baseball doesn't have enough concussions. I believe we can agree on that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, they need more.
You two have to help me make this a national controversy with Dan Patrick because Stugotz right now is ruling sports. Like he's offering rule changes, and baseball's like, yep, okay. We'll take your idea, and it's a good idea. And it's a good idea for all the reasons you mentioned. It creates more conversation around. We can question the manager.
Yes.
You want to put as many of those in the game as possible.
Oh, my God, yes.
Wow. I mean, the potential for controversy here. Imagine you're in a Dodgers World Series game. It's the 8th inning. Ohtani's coming up. But he's having a bad series, and he's 0 for 4 today with 3 strikeouts. You got Gavin Lux, the second baseman. He is hitting .438 in this series. He's 4 for 4 today. You got to sit Ohtani.
And this is why they're not going to do this or let anyone criticize.
That is
it.
a hilarious.
That's crazy.
Can you imagine if that played out, though?
That is hilarious.
Seriously.
And it begs the question you kind of brought up before. Do you go with the hot hit, like the random guy that's 3 for 3?
Yeah.
There's a threshold. Ohtani's not the threshold.
That's correct. But the owners are in favor of this, I thought. Or Manfred was quoted as saying that this has a lot of support from owners. Why are you guys dismissing the possibility that baseball would do this?
I'm dismissing it because of what he said in that original clip. We don't make rule changes that are going to just affect the numbers and the history of the game. Now all the best players are going to get like 100 extra at bats.
Yeah, but the numbers don't mean anything anyway. He knows that. I'm telling you, what happened during that interview is he heard a good idea. He stashed it away, created some distance from me, and then, I'm certain several people in Major League Baseball circles were calling him saying, Rob, that's actually a good idea.
Right.
He said, hey, we need to create distance from Stugotz. I'll unleash it in about 7 years. And here we are today with my rule, the magic at bat.
But what can we do other than just make noise about it? We don't have
That's
any.
about all we can do.
Well, why don't we get Drake's attorneys? And embarrass ourselves by just filing lawsuits. How do we make a big public mess of this? Do we sue? Do we call our attorney and sue Major League Baseball for stealing the intellectual property of Stugotz, which is like that? Like
Stugotz, not a bad idea.
Stugotz owning intellectual property, something called intellectual property.
I mean, he wrote a book.
Please help me.
I wrote a book.
Please help me make this a national controversy on Dan Patrick, and please help me establish who your characters are going to be. I'm not going to introduce you as Mike Ryan, Jessica, and Jeremy. Give me characters that I'm introducing.
We're going to fool them?
I was going to say, this is kind of have Dan connected like this. They want you.
They want you. Well,
Fritzy,
they know when they ask for you,
Yes.
the assorted cast of characters.
The task given to Fritzy was to get Le Batard.
Can you mic everybody? Can we get
we have mics.
We're in control of what goes through our board,
Okay.
and we've always done that.
Now, there is some pushback here. I have the original sound of our show, the first time we ever talked about the Magic at Bat. Now, yesterday we were giving credit to Stugotz and Billy. In this clip, there's other people that seem to have come up with this idea first. Let's listen to this.
You're wrong.
What I was saying, what Mike Ryan and I were discussing, is I think one of the problems with baseball, Dan, and no one's really talking about it, is everyone's sitting here trying to fix something that I think is probably unfixable, but everyone's trying to fix it. The real problem with baseball is when you go to a basketball game, you go to a Cavs game, you're going to see LeBron James for 90% of the game. And he's going to give you 27, 8 and 8, and you're probably going to see a dunk or a pass that you've never seen before, and you're going to leave happy. When you go to a baseball game, an Anaheim Angel game, you're going to see Mike Trout every third inning. He has a better chance of going 0 for 4 than he does going 4 for 4 with a home run and 4 RBIs. And you're going to see Howie Kendrick just as much as you're going to see Mike Trout. I go to a Cavs game, I'm not going to see John Lucas III. I'm only going to see LeBron James. John Lucas III is a backup guard. I know you're having Mike check it right now on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not going to see him. I'm going to see LeBron. So what I'm trying to figure out, Mike and I are trying to figure out, is I want to go in an Angel game, and I want to see Mike Trout every inning if possible.
So what are the Magic at Bats? How are you doing the Magic at Bats?
Like each manager has like 4 or 5 Magic at Bats in his back pocket. All right, so let's say it's like Mike Trout gets out in the first inning, but in the second inning, it's second and third, and there's one out. He has the option in that spot of putting Mike Trout back in the game. You see Mike Trout 2 innings in a row. Genius.
That's his idea, and his idea allows for a certain amount of theatrics. Like you could throw something like a smoke bomb or something. Magic at bat time, like you throw out the smoke bomb onto the field. Yeah.
Okay, a smoke bomb.
Yeah. Just like a little firework, like a little cherry bomb.
Magic.
Yeah.
All right, time for a Magic at Bat. Oh, Mike Scioscia.
The smoke is on the field.
Mike Scioscia has thrown the smoke bomb. Time for a Magic at Bat.
It's a lot cooler aesthetically than like a red challenge flag.
And they're trying to appeal to a younger audience. Imagine how much a younger audience would love the smoke bomb. And then there's Mike Trout coming out, emerging from the smoke bomb.
That's proof. What's the date stamp on that?
2014.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
August 2014.
Wow. Amazing. I mean, I got to sue, right? I mean,
well, you have to sue. One of the other problems we have, though, is now David Sampson is claiming it was his idea, that you stole it from him.
What?
So David Sampson.
I've never stolen a single thing from David Sampson. He has nothing that I would want. I mean, get out of here. Sampson. Please, I stole it from him. Eisen stole it from me. I mean, that's the only thief in this game is Eisen and Rob Manfred. I didn't steal anything from David Sampson. Not a single thing have I ever stolen from David Sampson. David Sampson calling me a thief. That is rich. I mean, God.
You both.
I would like that sofa that's a baseball glove, though. I would love that thing. I mean, it's awesome. I don't know where he got that.
I'm
going to steal it from him.
Some great sentences there. You thieves, the two of you, calling anyone else rich. When both of you have gotten so rich off your thievery.
Right, but I have proof. Samson has no proof.
No proof.
I don't know what he's claiming. I just, beyond saying that he is mad at you taking credit for something he thinks
Was he doing a show in 2014? Just out of curiosity, was he? Because I was. Was he?
Well, he was still stealing money from taxpayers.
Right, calling me a thief. Ha! Rich!
He's going to take so much exception to that.
Dan Le Batard, popular host of the Dan Le Batard Show on Peacock with his good buddy Stugotz and the voice of Miami sports. Dan Le Batard joins us on the program. How are you, Dan?
Oh, it is lovely to see you as always. I have said through tears a number of different times here how much I love and admire you, but keeping me waiting so that Seton can talk. Who the hell lets their producers talk so much that you would keep me waiting after they call me during our show to say, hey, Dan needs you immediately. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing my show. And, I admire him and we're partners, but I'm doing my show. And then they say this was the killer. He's got 5 minutes for you. 5 minutes. And I'm like, does he know how many people I have who want to talk about the thing that he wants to ask me about right here? Because all of my producers want to yell about what just happened yesterday with Alabama getting into this and Miami being left out. And I got Stugotz next to me, and all he's saying is, make sure to tell him StugottzBook.com.
Thank you. Yeah.
StugottzBook.com. He's very happy that you're having him on to promote his book that is a national bestseller right now that he didn't write or read himself.
He's actually having you on to promote it. He's not having me on. He didn't ask me to come on. He asked you to come on, and you're doing a great job so far. Keep promoting it, Dano. I mean, I like it.
We're down to 2.5 minutes now.
StugottzBook.com.
Yeah. How's Miami football? How's morale down there in South Beach, Dan?
Didn't you want to see Miami? Didn't you want to see Cam Ward and the best offense in the country in a shootout? Or did you just want to grandfather in Alabama on this made?
No. I got to see Miami against Syracuse, so I already got to see them.
Okay, but how about Alabama against Oklahoma, 6-6? Did you see that one? Oklahoma that lost by 20 to LSU, that lost just recently to Oklahoma, 24-3.
Dan, I'm with you. But if Miami beats Syracuse, Miami beats Georgia Tech, then we don't have this discussion. Then we don't have to bring in Alabama, Dan. Just beat Syracuse. Syracuse.
That is right. I can't argue that.
I would love to see Miami against Notre Dame in South Bend, Dan.
Dan Patrick, you are astute as always. If Miami were undefeated, they would be in. That is correct.
Or no, I'm saying beat Georgia Tech.
That's right. That's right.
Or beat Syracuse.
Yeah, agreed.
Dan.
Agreed. 2 fewer losses, and they're in. That is absolutely correct.
So you can put your snark to the side, just like Miami. Put them to the side, out of the playoffs, and then I'm just trying to have a rational discussion. That's it. That's all I'm trying to do.
Greg Cody wants to get in here, and he wants to get in here with sports conversation, and I want to get him in here reading 50 Shades of Greg. So which would...
He also has a book to promote. Yeah.
What would you prefer? Would you have...
No. I'm not reading an obscene passage from a book. No, I'm not doing that. I got to draw the line somewhere.
Well, okay. Here it is. 50 Shades of Greg.
No, it's not happening.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
I already did. I mean, I just...
You should be confused, Dan. You should.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, this is, Dan.
All I was looking for was
Miami talk.
You call yourself the Pope of South Beach. That's all I was trying to do, is let you pontificate and tell me about Miami. I told you if you beat Syracuse, you're probably in. That's all. I didn't say you had to go undefeated.
But then I have to make the argument. What I would say to you, Dan, if I'm making the argument, okay, I know that people don't believe that Syracuse is any good. It's the best the best passing offense, most prolific one in the sport, and nobody regards Syracuse as anything because they're busy regarding all the 8-3 teams in the SEC as something greater than that. The argument I make on behalf of Miami. Beyond, that they can put their record up against Alabama is that you keep telling me how soft that schedule is for Miami, but it would have 3 other top 25 teams in it if Miami hadn't beaten those teams. This is about SEC reputation, and it's about Alabama reputation.
I didn't say that their schedule was soft. I said beat Georgia Tech and beat Syracuse. At what point did I say they're soft?
Agree. I didn't say they were.
You just said that I said that they had a soft schedule.
Okay.
I did not.
What you're doing here with Georgia Tech and beat Syracuse, okay, and Notre Dame beat Northern Illinois. Like, of course, we can make that argument on any team. I would tell Alabama, beat Oklahoma.
Okay, but Notre Dame recovered from Northern Illinois and became a really, really consistent, good team. Take them out of the equation. These losses just happened to Miami. It just happened last week. Timing is everything.
Oh, but you say, Dan.
I think Miami should be in, Dan.
Dan, timing isn't everything. Merit should be everything. Timing, you can't tell me. It doesn't matter to me whether the games were at the end of the season or at the beginning of the season. It's a body of work. It's an entire schedule of work. Why play the games early at all if you're going to only make the ones late are the ones that count?
So should Notre Dame be kept out because they had one of the worst losses in all of college football with these top 12 teams? Is that what you're saying?
Dan, Alabama lost.
Dan, just answer the question.
No,
Notre Dame, Northern Illinois.
Hold on. I will answer it in a second. Oklahoma, 11 days ago, beat Alabama. Does everyone listening to this know how bad Oklahoma was this year? 24-3 is the most inexplicable result I have in the sport outside of Northern Illinois going and winning at Notre Dame. And people forget about it, and you're talking to me about timing when I'm like, timing was 11 days ago.
I don't think
Miami was beating Wake Forest.
Dan, I don't think Alabama should be in. I think, like you keep arguing the same thing, I'm agreeing with you that Miami should be in. I'm saying this is why they were probably kept out. Alabama's a brand. If this was 0-1, Miami would be in. They were a brand. They're not a brand anymore. That's part of this. It's a TV show. It's about entertainment. They want it. Alabama still has a fan base, a big fan base, a big draw. We're agreeing with the same thing. I'm saying you lost to Syracuse. That probably hurts you with the recency bias. That's all. That's it.
Well,
we're on the same page.
I think we all agree that we all got into sports, not for the scoreboard, but for timing and brand. I agree with you. Timing and brand. That's right. That's how we should measure bodies colliding and killing themselves for money.
Dan, the real problem here is Boise State. Get them the hell out of my college football playoff. That is I want brands. I'm with you, Dan Patrick, okay? I want Alabama. I want Miami. I want nothing to do with Boise State or UNLV. Get them out.
You want to get a plug in for your book too?
StugottsBook.com. Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your help with the
book.
Are
you sure you don't want the 50 Shades of Greg? I know it's awkward, Dan. But
it is.
You are, but you're interrupting what we were doing. Look.
Please say no, Dan.
I have told.
No.
Thank you.
No, but this one's safe for Middle America.
No.
Man, I'd love to, but I'm up against a commercial break.
Thank you.
And he's
Thank
confused,
God.
and he should be.
Yeah.
All right.
Dan Le Batard is the Jake Paul of sports host, you know? That's what you are. You're the Jake Paul of sports host. You should be ashamed.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay. StugottsBook.com. You gave me 5 minutes. Greg wanted to talk, and then
you took 2.5. You took 2.5. I gave you even more than that.
You did.
Why did we book him in the first place? Good God. All right. We move on. That's Dan Le Batard. No, we're done. StugottsBook.com. Go Hurricanes.
There was no need for pepper spray to be rained down on me. And I stain. Oh, wartime left eye injury. Ohio State sucks drama, you lost, that's the deal. The video clearly shows, with my eye almost blinded, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Baby, I can tell you that I'm pissed they froze with the spray. Oh, she sounded like a goose was stepped on with heels, yeah. Even though Rose was in June, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
Even though I wasn't doomed, there's Harry and Lucy laughing.
My God.
We got Shakira?
Rose's accent is excellent. I think we have a problem on our hands, though. Somebody just walked in here and handed me something, and I don't know if that person is a lawyer. Let's close this chapter once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen of the Dan Le Batard Show, I stand here today representing my client, Rose. The pepper spraying incident of 2024 robbed her of her ability to function like a normal human being. We've had time to reflect on this outrage. Yes, my client went viral, but at what cost? Her newfound fame as pepper spray girl is both a blessing and a curse, but Rose doesn't want your pity. She wants justice, and so we present our demands. My client demands are, number one, a lifetime supply of eye drops, preferably gold-plated for dramatic effect. Number two, her own show, Name It, Rose Does It, because risking her life once wasn't enough. Number three, a $2,000 sound bed, link to be sent. Number four, Dan has to wear an eye patch for a week in solidarity. Number five, a company-sponsored therapy dog, preferably a golden retriever named Pepper. Number six, Roy and David must do a TikTok dance in Rose's honor. A formal apology from Dan and Lucy delivered in a song. And full sponsorship of her upcoming book, The Adventures of a despistada is the word.
Spanish can be tough sometimes,
Yeah, you got it.
Dan?
Complete with ads on the show and a branded candy cane book tour. Why was I handed this? What authority does the person have who handed me this?
Reasonable demands.
Yeah.
Not even producer.
Pablo Torre Finds Out is the name of the podcast. That song was excellent by Rose. I did not know that Rose had a singing voice. I did not know that she was capable of doing that. So I'm sorry that you were pepper sprayed, Rose, and I'm sorry that Lucy spent so much time laughing about it. Jessica, did you find it as funny as Lucy seemed to find all of that? Because she was laughing in the face of Rose as Rose was on the floor, pawing at her eyes.
Some people laugh as a absurd, coping mechanism. Like when you're not sure how to react, some people just kind of reflexively go, ah, ha, ha, ha. Like when Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. I laughed for like a week. I was dead inside, but I laughed for like a week. Now I don't give a about it anymore. I don't care. Redemption feels sweet, Dan. But some people just laugh when sad happens.
Do you guys know anybody who does that other than Lucy? Because Lucy was saying it was her coping mechanism, and I know
Jess. As she just
my wife, anytime I'm in pain, my wife starts laughing.
While I work here.
If I stub my toe, she starts cackling.
My wife does that. If she trips and almost falls, she laughs as if at herself.
If a child walks into something, my wife will laugh. My daughter walked into a sliding glass door and legitimately hurt herself.
And you're freaking out, right?
No, but my wife...
You were laughing too?
No, I don't have that gene. But my wife just couldn't stop laughing.
Always funny.
I was there tending to our daughter.
The coping mechanism, though, sounds like that your wife is just laughing at you. Like I could see you stubbing your toe. Is that you're saying that's an empathetic response from her, that where she's feeling your pain and therefore laughing, as opposed to laughing because you've hurt yourself?
Anytime I'm she finds it funny, the act of me just like hopping around, and she's laughing at me.
Okay,
there's no other way to look at it.
That's not a coping mechanism. That's her laughing that she's married an oaf.
It's just mean.
And that, and a loveless marriage. Pablo Torre Finds Out is the name of the podcast, but I want to bring him into the thing that's happening right now. Greg Cody refuses to read these lyrics.
Imagine that.
Dan Patrick, we just soiled the middle of that Dan Patrick interview, totally discombobulated a professional who's never discombobulated.
Right.
Because I thought you guys, I've seen you guys working for the last 45 minutes. You guys have been trying to find words more palatable to Greg Cody than the ones he refuses to read here. You guys have been trying to produce Greg Cody for 45 minutes. He refuses to do what it is that you're doing, refused to do it on the Dan Patrick Show, and now refuses to do it now.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why wouldn't I?
Yeah. I mean, he said that 44 minutes ago. He didn't want to do it.
The copy is cleaner than it was before.
I don't even know if he gave the new copy a look. I was like, I whispered in his ear, "Hey, read it. See if this is to your liking." But I think he's just against the entire concept, which is fine. Like, he doesn't have to do it. It's good. I feel pretty confident in the script that we did. I think it's funny.
It's a really good script.
I don't think any of these clips are going to come back to haunt him. We went out of our way to clean up some of the language in there.
Greg, here's the thing.
No one's trying to trick you.
Pablo,
Like,
just hold on a second.
Working within the rules.
Just hold on just a second, okay?
I'm piecing it together.
Is it possible? Can I just convince you of the following? And I understand if you do not trust these people this way, the producers of your show. But for many years, they have produced this show well enough to put us in all very good, likable, funny positions. They produce the show well. I don't believe either that you have read all of this copy. I just read blindly handed to me. I had not seen the copy that was just handed to me by that person who wasn't a lawyer, and I don't know what they do for us.
How'd that go?
I have terrible regret about everything that just happened because that person's judgment shouldn't be trusted on funny. Like, in fact, whoever that was.
Or Spanish.
Wow.
Or at least your comprehension.
Yes.
Dan's stumbling on, I believe he tried to say Despacito at first, which feels like not the right word.
I really ruined that because
it's pretty pathetic.
Which, ironically, doing it Despacito might have helped.
Yes. So,
for who?
Major penalty, 5 minutes, swooning comedy.
if I could leave right now, I would give myself the penalty for trusting the judgment of the person who came in and handed me that, but I trust my producers. I trust the people. No, rare it is that somebody just walks in, hands you a piece of paper. You have no idea what it is you're reading, and now you're going to read it live on air. What I'm asking Greg Cody to do right now is to trust. I've watched them working over the last 45 minutes when they weren't busy ruining the show, talking about college football nonstop in a way that was super annoying. They were working on funny words to replace the ones they think that you're objecting to make this cleaner copy. And I believe that they're handing something that if you read right now, sight unseen, and trusted them, that would make you laugh, make us laugh, and not actually be something that is what you're worried about. But you have to trust them.
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, as you referred to me, I'm the enemy of funny. You know, I'm a guy
that was off air.
I'm a guy who really doesn't like to go along with the joke.
That was off air. That was not an on-air
But
thing.
he's hurt by it, Dan.
Okay, I mean, I'm the opposite of the enemy of funny, but you called me that. And I'm just curious why, like you had your dad reading them.
I never did that. That was the producers of the show who I trust.
And now you're asking me to read them. The old guys. I guess it's funny when an old guy reads something vulgar.
You got it.
That's a ticket.
Well, yes, that's the trick.
I just wanted to make sure I had that right.
In Dan's defense, he wanted Chris to feel what it is he's feeling when he has to listen to his dad.
Were we hiding
That's
that?
all. Right.
No, it's dad, old guy that would be uncomfortable reading such sexy things, and you objected, and then we pivoted and we wrote old-timey words.
How sexy was it? Just to jump in here,
It's 50 Shades of Grey, which is pretty vulgar.
Well, you still haven't read it?
Well.
You still haven't read the script? I think you'd like it. I think it puts you in a winning position and gives you big laughs, and you're a hero.
So, Greg, I will tell you that for 20 years, blindly, Mike hands me a piece of paper, Billy, Chris, they hand me a piece of paper. I trust them. I'm going to read it.
Right.
I understand, however, why you do not want to do this.
Sure.
I get it.
Thank
it makes sense to me.
But I just don't understand. Like, he's not even proofreading it. It's not like we're doing this read this right now live. Like, just proofread it.
You came up to me
and
handed me a sheet of paper live while we're on the air with Dan Dan Patrick.
And I said, proofread it to your liking. Like I said, you were leading the interview. You had plenty of time to read.
Mike, I think it's fair to say if you were to read it now in a clinical way as a matter of reviewing and approving, it would be different from you performing it. So could you read it just in a way that establishes that you've reviewed it, not in a way that actually ties you to it in a performance?
I would read it, but not aloud.
Oh, come on.
Before I read it.
What are we doing
right now?
I tried.
It's like a weird tussle.
You read it.
It's not as funny.
Because it's not as funny if I'm reading those words because I'm not going to give away the only joke that's in there now.
Because you're the enemy of funny.
Come on.
Because I'm the enemy of funny.
Because
Exactly.
if I read it, you'll
I've
see
I've never done anything on this show.
All right, here. We've already ruined the comedy.
I don't know.
I will read this, and then Greg will learn exactly why it's more funny if he reads it. Just proofread it. Take your time and let me know if it's okay. Don't just die on a hill when you don't even want to read the art that Jeremy and I have created.
If I had it in front of me, I would be reading it.
Hold on. Tone,
Major penalty, 5 minutes. Rooming comedy.
Mike Ryan, out.
Oh, Greg.
Out.
Oh, no, I don't get any credit for giving you some good synonyms.
You know what? Bye. We brought it in this back row today.
will read it.
Yeah, we did.
Jess was absolutely
Out. I didn't, Jessica. I didn't kick you out.
Jess, you stay.
Jessica, I didn't.
She gave you double birds. Wow, with handlebars.
I didn't.
I respect that move.
I
Been there, Jess.
I
Been
don't
there.
even kick. I didn't kick her out, and I don't know why she's leaving. But okay, if you want, get out of here. Get out of here. Go sit in the. I'm. All right, Pablo, check your email.
Don't
wait
you
a minute.
dare.
Wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute.
Penalty
He
ball.
finally
Don't
saw
you dare.
how ridiculous he was being.
Wait. Because.
Don't cave in.
All right.
You stop. Let him cave in.
Oh,
all right. Hold on a second. I need to slow everything down here for just a second, okay? Because
dangerous game.
Greg, where are you right now with this? Because while we're talking and while we're arguing and yelling at everybody, we have sent to Pablo. Pablo, check your Slack. We have sent to Pablo what it is, and now I don't genuinely know whether you doing this, what the work of the producers, whether you should be the star of this segment or Pablo. I think the work maybe should go to Pablo now that you're asking to do it, just so that you can see that it's funny. But I'm telling you that I believe that you reading this as look, Greg, it is so rare for me to see them during the show, 3 of them working for 45 minutes on something together during, not listening to the show, just working for 45 minutes. When that comes to me, I trust it more than whoever that fool was who came in here and handed me that piece of paper that made me read Spanish on the fly.
That fool is serving a 5-minute major right now.
It needs to be 5 months or 5 years because that's to never happen again. Like, do you know how long? Look, go read the listen to the oral history if you want to know how hard it is for me to trust you that way. That person barging in here and handing me something to read on his funny? Like
I'm 20 years in. I'm still working on it.
I'm not sure that person should work here anymore if that person thinks it's okay to do that.
Oh, name that person.
Well, but you're the enemy of funny here because
I am the enemy of
because I believe that if you read this, you're the funniest person to read this as someone who has seen over the last 20 years what the producers of this show can do when given somebody's personality traits to make them a star.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let me have it.
Chris, are you in agreement that it's funny?
He has to do it. Dan, I'm looking at this. It feels like I can't be the guy trying to audition for the role of Han Solo when Harrison Ford's right there. Like, this is the first line, spoiler alert, is darn tootin'. Like, you want me to? Greg has to do
you know what?
Spoiler.
You've ruined
Damn
it. You
Pablo.
know what? Get him out of here.
Penalty
There's
box.
so many
Thank
more
you.
lines.
Major penalty,
There's so
5
many
minutes.
more.
Rooming comedy.
It says darn truth,
Unbelievable.
and I'll read it.
What are we doing?
Keep him out for 5 minutes. No, stay down there. Stay down there. I don't need any visual jokes from you. You get out of here. Here you go, Greg Cody. It's in front of you, and now you read, please. Stugotz, you tell me what you think is funniest here, because I think Jessica and Mike might want to be in here for this, but they're penalized, as is Pablo. Okay.
I like both of them in the penalty box as Greg is reading this.
Okay, go ahead and put them up on the screen, please, so people can see their reaction to their work with Jeremy there.
Just that, right?
Just all of it, if you don't mind. And I'm asking, Greg, I was asking you to just read it instead of proofreading it. Just read it live like I was asked to do, please. Trust the producers.
Slowly and sensually.
Well, trust Dan is what he's asking you to do.
Darn tootin'. Only me. Her words are a siren's call to my libido. Losing all self-restraint, I sweep everything off my desk, sending my papers, phone, and pens all clattering or floating to the floor, but I don't give a hoot. I lift Anna and lay her across my desk so her hair spills over the edge and onto the seat of my chair. You want it? You got it, baby, I growl, shipping out the prophylactic and unzipping my pantaloons, making quick work of covering my doohickey. I stare down at the insatiable Miss Steele. I sure hope you're ready, I warn her, grabbing hold of her wrists and keeping them at her sides. With one swift move, I'm inside her whatchamacallit. Ah, goodness me, Anna, you're so ready.
I mean, woo! I mean, amazing.
Now look how happy
Look
he
at
is.
him. Look how happy.
It was good editing. Good editing by the producers.
Trust them. Trust your son. It's the reason that the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody is such a hit.
Well, trust Mike, trust Jess. Your son, that's a whole different story. Why is Pablo back? I mean,
he's got something to promote. It's the only reason he ever comes around here. His podcast is doing very well because he appears here and then follows his curiosities endlessly. Nick Wright called your podcast the world's most expensive podcast the other day. Where is it that you're going? What is it that you're doing this next episode?
Well, some people left ESPN to open the microphones to spread the gospel of freedom in America, and that worked out, as we all know, real great. I left to get a butter sculpture of myself made. And Butter Me was very popular in the streets of New York City. So that's this episode that came out just yesterday. It's also an episode about sports statues with the Pulitzer Prize winning art critic. There I am.
Yeah.
It's made of butter, that sculpture, and this is all Dwayne Wade related, the Dwayne Wade statue related?
I buried the lead. We got the leading authority on art in the world, arguably Jerry Saltz of New York Magazine, Pulitzer Prize winner, to critique. He does not know who Dwayne Wade is. We had him critique all of the sports statues that have existed in the last several years. And we culminated the episode in him evaluating Butter Pablo. And so I just want to tell Nick Wright to go yourself, and he would know this as himself a butter face. So, in your face.
I don't really believe one of you liberal elites should be shaming someone else on how they look, how their face looks, especially since these butter sculptors made yours skinnier than it actually is.
Yeah. I am hot. I am real hot in dairy form.
Hot
that was
butter.
not my I couldn't believe it wasn't butter.
Looks
No,
like
that's
John
just-
F. Kennedy.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
Really?
That's what they said. Yeah, that's what Jerry Saltz Pulitzer Prize winner said. That it looked like JFK.
How about that?
Well, what are you doing there? Just scrubbing all the ethnicity off you? Like, what are we doing there?
Well,
Like,
they
what-
gave me a better mustache. They increased the ethnicity in terms of just the stash. If you zoom in, you can see that it's my upper lip has some more.
All right,
company.
entirely self-involved. So the episode is about you making a butter sculpture of yourself.
No, it's about
Okay, great.
it's about art and criticism in an era in which people are afraid to criticize art because, of
here we
course,
go. Here
there's a
we
great
go.
sensitivity here. I'm actually being honest. And Jerry Saltz, by the way, is an incredible guy, and maybe I did when everyone left.
All right, look here you go. Just keep
taste myself.
Do me a favor, Pablo, here on your way out.
I was delicious.
Just go ahead and give me all your important societal thoughts for 1 minute about the statement you're trying to make with this very important podcast episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out. And Chris, you just keep playing that music behind him when he says incredibly pretentious things.
All I'm here to point out is that the idea of criticism in the world of art has become an endangered species. We live in a time when people are afraid to actually point out in a coherent way with actually logically grounded opinion why something sucks. If you are an artist, okay, the internet is not the place where criticism should be happening in this way. It's cheapened it. But if you actually have the authority of somebody who has criticized a presidential portrait, as Jerry Saltz famously did of Barack Obama, the painter Kehinde Wiley, put him in a throne against this beautiful ornate African backdrop. Jerry said that sucked. And he explained why. And he was able to pursue a profession in which he can actually speak truth to the power that seems to be incumbent across all of the art world. There's a banana, as you guys know, that just sold for like 9 figures. Jerry Saltz will tell you whether that banana is actually worth eating. My butter sculpture, if you watch the episode, you will see there are at least 3 women in Washington Square Park who wanted to see what I actually tasted like. And they found out. We all found out, actually. And that is journalism.
Pablo Torre finds out wherever it is you get your podcast. Thank you, Pablo. Good seeing you again.
Like you guys, love you guys. Nick Wright.
Okay.
Billy.
Like you, love you. That's a weird way.
Yeah,
Odd way of saying that.
all of it.
Do you like us or love us?
And just we don't need your language. Keep it classy. Like, honest to God, you just like that you can do that now that you're not always at ESPN. Go ahead and do that at ESPN. Yeah, do that, brave guy, at ESPN. See how it works out for you. Go ahead and do that.
It's not going great.
Or MSNBC. Go ahead and do it over there. See how that works out for you.
It's not ESPN, Dan. We can say butt plug now.
Greg Cody, how do you guys all feel? Thank you, Pablo. Do you guys feel better? You produce Greg Cody. Greg Cody can be a reluctant star, and it seems like you guys are unsatisfied because he's not grateful for all the things you guys do for him.
Well, we hyped it up. Instead of it being a surprise, it became this like weird battle of wills where he just didn't want to give me the consideration to even proofread it. I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of liked it.
And then he just took and then he's just like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, there was
after
also
I
a
read
second
it.
half.
He felt
of
the
script.
pressure.
Yeah.
I mean,
all I was asking you to do was proofread it to make sure it was to your liking.
Okay, I did. By the way, I want to melt the butter Pablo and put it on popcorn. How about that? You handed it to me live on the air. After I finally read it, I'm like, this is good. I like the sub words you use.
I guess you didn't hear me when I moved your headphone and I said, please proofread
He was
this to
too
see
angry.
if it's to your liking.
He was angry.
He was too angry. This is what happens when he gets angry. Like, Chris,
I'm familiar with how he gets, which is why it could have been funnier if we just did it.
Chris,
or if he proofreaded it in that proofread.
You wanted it done on Dan Patrick, is what you wanted.
Yeah,
Right.
which we had the window if he proofread it.
This is what happens with Greg. It is both when you ask him to do something that might serve him, and also when he stubbornly thinks he's right about something and then just sort of entrenches on it. Surely, Erlene, his wife, would have a great many complaints. Greg will come around to your way of thinking, but he's going to fight you tooth and nail on helping himself. Like, he's just going to be stubborn. And then when you get inside the anger, there's no talking to him. It's just bleep off. Now I'm angry. You can't get anywhere near him. He heard enemy of fun while being in everything you just heard. He was being the enemy of fun.
Well, you described me properly. You know, I'm not going to debate any of that. I mean, people see my stubbornness as one of my loving qualities, and you know it.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, my wife does.
No, she doesn't.
I was caught up in this weird.
Quite the opposite.
I don't believe this weird power struggle when this whole back row was writing in service of you to put you over and make you look great.
I know, but
you didn't trust us.
But in your mind, it also would have been funny if you tricked me and I thought I was reading.
No,
Greg,
trust us.
Greg, that's what I was trying to tell you. Lesson learned here.
You don't trust him.
When Mike hands you a piece of paper, just read it blindly.
Okay? Really?
Moreover, I wanted to thank you for your challenge because, old guy reading 50 Shades of Grey, that's funny. We established that with Papi. You issued a challenge to make it funnier, to make it more palatable, and then we accepted the challenge. You didn't even trust us enough, even though we worked hard to proofread it.
So you've just been handed another sheet of paper blindly that you have not been able to proofread.
Now, Chris handed him that piece of paper, not Mike. That's a different thing. I don't know.
I'm now going to hand it to you. I also have not read this, and we would like, I guess, you to read this without.
I know that look.
Okay.
I'm not doing that.
I know that look.
No, proofread it, please. It would be really funny if I just gave you the lyrics to my back.
I have the sheet of paper right now, and I think the funniest way to do this is for him to now trust you and read what's been placed without proofreading it.
But I sold Greg on if Mike hands you a piece of paper. So I think you need to give that. I'll give it to Mike. Mike needs to come back in here and hand it.
All right, now who can give it to you that you would trust and read it blindly for the first time?
Based on this setup, nobody. And let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to read it extra slow, and if I come upon a word that starts with a V as in victory, I'm going to crumble up the paper and throw it like a softball.
That's the word? Like, that's the one word?
There's a number of words I can think of.
You got to give us vulva.
Vulva's allowed, isn't it?
Volvo the car, yes. There's a number of words that I would not say.
Woof. Greg.
That's why you need us to write for you.
Hey,
Greg.
Pablo, I want to put that butter on popcorn.
Greg, 2 jokes. I mean, Greg, two terrible jokes showing people what it sounds like when you're not produced correctly. Like,
Volvo car.
You're the one. Somebody else read that. You read it.
I can read it if you guys think that will be funny. I want to trust the producers of this show. Look, I have lost control of the show today. I'm going to owe Dan Patrick an apology when I get home.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
There are a number of things that I wanted to talk about today that we have not gotten to, okay? I'd be curious about all of the following, okay? We didn't get to any of them, and I want to know whether you guys are interested in any of them. Jamie Foxx has a new special coming out. I really want to see what he has to say in it, okay? Kendrick Lamar and Father John Misty is a story that I want to get to, and just all the Kendrick Lamar stuff. I want to get to Anthony Jeselnik's special. I want to get to the Florida Panthers making the New York Rangers break everything up. I want to get to the idea of the Heat trading Jimmy Butler. I haven't had ability to get to any of these things today. Tyreek Hill having 10 babies now. Mike Tomlin, 18 straight winning seasons. I can't get to any of this stuff because of what you guys are wanting to talk about today. Ray Lewis possibly being the FIU coach. Paul Millsap retiring when I associate him with only one thing ever, 16-year career.
He was still playing?
I think a lot of people had that reaction yesterday, and he retired in the middle of a season, which strikes me as unusual. I don't know where he actually was at the end, but I associate him
with one game.
It's not just one game, Stugotz, against the Miami Heat in a regular season. That Paul Millsap game, to me, when I heard of his retirement yesterday, reminded me of a time I long for so much, which is Game 17 of a regular season mattering in any way at all. Like as I'm trying to maintain interest in the NBA season, and I'm like, how am I going to talk about the Heat? They're vastly less interesting than they have been for a long time. And yeah, Bam's falling apart, but they're a middling team, and they're probably going to trade Jimmy Butler to, Houston and Dallas want him, but you're not going to get very much in exchange for Jimmy Butler that's going to make you better right now. Like I don't think Dallas or Houston have pieces that are better than Jimmy Butler as a piece. You'd be trading away today for tomorrow because you'd be acknowledging your today is no longer good enough.
Millsap last played in 2021, so he was hoping that, if he hung around long enough, someone would sign him. No one signed him, so he decided to retire.
Okay, so he wasn't on a team anywhere, but he was collecting money, and for some reason in the middle of that contract, not playing for 3 years now, he is retiring. But which of these stories do you want to get to, or do we want to stay in Greg Cody's anger and 50 Shades of Greg?
Well, the way all this broke is if it was just organically read on the air, we could do that. But now we've built this up. The execution was good. It was funny. And I'm reading the script, and we did this in separate segments. We have the expectation of funny now. And while this is funny, it's not funnier than the first one, in my opinion. Yeah. So we're going to get back in the lab and write something that
There you go. That's how trust is established. You see what I'm saying?
Very well done.
Well, but and all of those things that I mentioned, I didn't even mention that Greg Cody is also dying to talk about his Hall of Fame baseball vote, which he is very proud of, and the fact that Wu-Tang Clan sent him some sneakers that is funny because he's 70 years old, and now Wu-Tang is in business with Greg Cody.
Yes.
Funnier because they did make us they made us members of the Klan in Las Vegas. You guys do remember that they
did, yeah.
They made us honorary members of the Klan.
You're going to want to throw
Which Klan?
That's exactly the phrasing I want. Thank you. I was going to let it sit there by itself. And Greg Cody has been sent Wu-Tang shoes that are cool, but this room is not qualified to tell you what is stylistically cool. So Jeremy, Jessica, Mike, the shoes
Have you seen my slacks? They're linen.
The shoes that Wu-Tang sent Greg Cody.
Oh, look at this.
What do you guys think of these shoes? My wife liked them. She's got a lot more.
That I didn't get a pair, Dan.
Yeah,
a lot
pretty
more
sure I said
style.
that I wanted.
Those are
The
nice.
Hee Haw 3 did sing "Baby I Like It Raw" to him in Vegas.
Wow.
So
Same industry, yeah.
Only the lead singer is getting shoes.
Maybe I like it raw.
Not listening to your complaints at all. Self-involved as every lead
Oh, I
singer
can't read
is.
50 Shades of Grey, but I'll do that again.
Let's see what size they are.
Huh.
Are they the right size for Greg?
What size shoe are you, Greg?
Rooting against that.
I am about 11 and a half.
Wow.
He does like it raw.
Mm-hmm.
Damn right.
What size are those, Greg?
Close enough. They look so good. Hey, 11 and a half.
Wow, they got it
What
right.
were the odds? These fit me perfectly. Should I try them on?
Yes.
Wow.
He is so delighted. The gift we've given him is as the center of attention as a gift getter. Like right now,
His favorite gift,
he's not even doing show right now.
No.
He's just enjoying his self-involvement.
And I'm enjoying him
kidding.
enjoying his
He's
self-involvement.
swimming in it.
yeah.
Like he thinks he doesn't care whether this is entertaining. He's entertained because someone has given him something cool for free.
Damn
Like
right.
this is how it's going to be at the gates of heaven for.
Christ.
Yeah. It's tough with a
These
new
aren't 11
sneaker.
and a- I can't even
Right.
get these on.
Yeah. You got to loosen
Like
up the
8 and a
laces
half.
down
You
low.
probably
you know?
haven't wore high tops in how long?
I haven't worn high tops. Last time I wore high tops,
Do me a
they
favor,
were kids. I bought it.
Greg. Let's see if we can multitask, old man. Give us all your Hall of Fame takes while trying to put the sneaker on. Let's see how long that takes.
I mean, I made a lot of notes.
All right.
Let's see how long all of that takes. Let's see how
Make
when
sure
did
the microphone travels.
Wait a
with it.
second. He has Hall of Fame
Hold on,
notes,
hold on.
Dan.
Greg,
I mean, this
Greg,
is
Greg.
Yeah.
Let's get
notes.
These can't be 11 and a halves.
Tight.
Unless my feet have grown overnight.
You want me to help you?
My feet are still growing.
Putting on high tops.
I'll help you.
You should help him.
Hold on. Everyone slow down. No help.
What?
No help.
No, I'm good. I'll get them.
Greg, do all of this at once, though. We've
Yeah.
got 4 minutes left in the show.
Okay, right.
The struggle of you giving us all your Hall of Fame takes while trying to put on the show, put it on the shoe. I want to listen to all of that.
Okay, I'm gonna vote for Billy Wagner again. I always vote for Sheffield, and this is the last time he's on the ballot.
Really?
I always vote for A-Rod and Manny Ramirez. The new guys who are absolutely first ballot Hall of Famers are Ichiro, of course, and CeCe Sabathia. I have never voted for Andrew Jones, but I'm going to give him a long, hard look.
Right.
This shoe fits me like a glove. Wow.
Put on the second one and give us the rest of your Hall of Fame analysis.
I can't believe he's never voted for Andrew Jones. That's insane. He
What'd you
was
say?
great.
You're going to give it a long, hard thought? What was
I'm
it?
going to give it a long, hard look, baby.
Baby.
Sounds like something out of 50 Shades of Grey. A long, hard look. All right, listen. What else? Chase Utley? Nah. Forget about it.
My man.
Beltron? Sorry.
Yeah.
Close don't count.
I'm getting Mr. Rogers vibes right now. This is taking me
what
back
else?
a little bit.
Felix Hernandez?
Yeah.
Nope.
King Felix.
You know what? Maybe
Really?
eventually not a first ballot guy.
I don't like Ichiro as a first ballot guy. I got to be honest.
Are you serious?
No. What are you
What?
talking
No
about?
way.
It feels a little xenophobic.
No, we love
Oh, yeah.
Ichiro.
What?
Ichiro's a first ballot guy 100%. These shoes, I'm floating on these shoes.
Mike, I got to tell you, you're lucky. I don't know what that means.
These are great. Thank you, Wu-Tang
Something
Clan.
phobic.
Kick your feet up.
Yeah,
and
just put
kinda
your feet up on the table.
Kick your feet up, pull the mic closer to you. There
You
you
look
go.
great.
Wow.
Oh, they look
Steelers
great,
colors,
especially
too.
with the jeans.
Can you still get your feet up on the desk?
I tell you what, I'm serious.
Yeah.
These shoes are magical.
Mm-hmm.
What do the kids say? What's a good verb
Lit.
for? These
Darn
Not
tootin'.
anymore.
These are neato.
Whatchamacallits.
They look good
These
under
are
your
fire.
pantaloons.
These are
Slacks.
these are sticky. The kids
That's-
say that.
that's
Is
not
that a
one of
thing?
That's also from 50
This
Shades.
is gas.
That was from Lewis.
I'm a what? No, seriously, these are great. I love them. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Greg when he's constipated during Thanksgiving.
I'll be wearing these home.
Yep. Any more Hall of Fame takes or?
No, I think that about did it. I only get 10 votes. I normally don't use all 10.
Can you do a Riz face?
Work in the Riz face.
Yeah, work in the Riz
Just like
face.
grab your chin
Just
like
a
you're
little
real
Riz
interested
face.
in something.
Like a little question mark over your lip and then
Nailed it.
Now say boom.
Boom!
No,
No.
that's all right.
No?
It's
No,
good.
that was hotter than anything in 50 Shades of Grey.
Absolute petrol.
You've come so far from Volvo.
Also 50
Thank
Shades
you.
of Grey.
The Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody. Stugotz is
so happy.
the most recent guest. The book signing is canceled. For those of you who had made big plans to be there tomorrow night at a church, we're assuming it's an act of God.
Yeah, we like to think of it as postponed, right, Stugotz?
Yes, exactly.
It's going to be rescheduled? You're
Of course it
promising
will.
the listener
Yes.
that it's going to be rescheduled?
I love that this all happened because Notre Dame has a cornerback named Christian Gray that caught a 99-yard pick six. What a show. You never know what's going to happen on this show, Dan.
That is right, Jim. How are you feeling right now, Greg?
I feel great.
You are radiant. Look at him. Just a celebration of self.
So upset an hour ago.
I know, so angry at us. Way to go, Greg.
These are terrific.
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.
I need some help from an expert here, Stugotz, because there is something happening in America's most popular sports that I believe is being underreported. It is not getting nearly enough attention. And it's that the defensive backs with the highest grades in the sport are all white. So I brought in a white man, Matthew Berry, to come on here and on behalf of Peacock, join us and explain to us what the hell is going on that this can happen quietly in the NFL, where the defensive back position has been overtaken by Riley Moss and Harrison Smith, and that fast Dolphin that's faster than Tyreek Hill, Ethan Bonner, and who the hell, how is this happening? Weren't we talking last year about Ivers Cooper DeJean? We were talking about that guy was going to dominate. Those are the 4 highest grades going into Sunday. Matthew, good to see you. What the hell's happening?
You know what? It's been a weird year, Dan. It's been an unbelievably weird year, top to bottom. So just add this one to the list for sure.
What is weirdest? Tell me why you're seeing weird everywhere you look.
I just think, you know what? I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we're talking about a sport that is played with a leather ball in a oblong shape. Weird stuff is going to happen. And you've got 22 men trying to fight over that ball in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And it's a game that's not officiated consistently. And so something that's legal in one game isn't legal in the next, and it's all over the place. And so I think just all those things combined, plus the schedule is weird, right? You've got Friday games and Monday games and Thursday games and Saturday day games. And it's all over the place. So, but it's fun. And it's why we love the sport. And it's why we follow it. And it keeps you entertained.
It is so good what he's saying, because you do realize, right, given that there are only 11 minutes of action and most of it is going for it from first to second to third and goal, like 3 inches at a time, it's as random as us dropping a football from a helicopter and just having 11 guys on each side just run at each other and try and fight over it.
Hey, I mean, I will tell you, I have had in my career, and I know you guys have sources as well. I have literally had coaches that are sources from mine that will text me and saying, this guy's going to have a huge game. This guy is, we have found something in the defense, and we think this guy is somebody that we're going to really target, and he's going to have a great game. And I don't want to give up my source, so I go on TV and I'm like, you got to start this guy. This guy's going to have a huge game. Blah, 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 for whatever stats that I have. But I know secretly the coach has told me, oh, yeah, we're targeting this guy. And then, first play, he drops one. Next time, and then he has some dumb penalty. And next thing you look up at the end of the game, he's 2 for 16 on 3 targets. I've had NFL coaches tell me, like, we planned on this. This is what we practiced all week. And then it doesn't go anywhere near what they expect.
This seems like insider trading. I don't know. This guy, how are you supposed to win against this guy in his damn leagues? Like,
working the sources, Dano.
If he's going out there.
Stugotz, you want to ask him who his sources are?
I do. Who are they, Matt?
How does this work with you? Are you somebody who's actually soliciting fantasy advice? Like, are they, you're not going to answer Stugotz's question of who it is, but are they people who like fantasy?
They are not. I mean, it depends on, I have sources all over, right? And so, listen, I'm not claiming that I'm like a Mike Florio or a Schefter or anyone like this, where I have the kind of sources that they do. But I have enough, and I don't ask a specific fantasy question. I ask a football question, but they know who I am and they know what I do and they understand why I'm asking. And so, I might say something like, pick a player. You guys are Miami. I might say something like, again, I'm not claiming I have Dolphin sources, but just like I might say something. Hey, love what you guys are doing with Achane. Do you think he continues to get the majority of the workload, or are you going to see some Mostert and Jalen Wright mixed in? You know what I mean? Like I'll ask sort of a football question that I will then interpret for fantasy. That kind of stuff.
It's a leading question.
It is. The whole thing's a bogus sham. He's out here cheating, and it's insider trading, and the man's got all access to all the good things you want in this sport.
I wish I had it.
I'll tell you a story. I remember when I first got to ESPN, I joined this league that was what's called the famed War Room League, which is all the NFL experts and reporters and insiders and everything like that. I remember one time, and Trent Dilfer, this was when Trent was at the team, and at ESPN, and Trent was in the league. And I remember texting Trent and I were trying to do a running back for wide receiver trade, and I was trying to get a running back for him for a wide receiver. And he's just like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds fair. Let's finalize it this afternoon. I'm like, okay, got it. And so that afternoon, I texted him and said, hey, Trent, are we good for this trade? I'll send it through. And he goes, no, deal's off. And I go, why is the deal off? And he goes, well, I talked to his quarterback. He hates him. You know, he hates the wide receiver. And so I'm just like, oh, great. There you go. And it just sort of let me know that I was kind of in a different world there as well. And I'll tell you guys off air who the quarterback and wide receiver were. But yeah, and that wide receiver didn't last on that team very long. So it is, things like that happen. But
this
again,
should be illegal. All of this should be illegal. I don't think Matthew Berry should be allowed to do any of this.
But this is what I'm trying to tell you, Dan, illegal. Is that like you'd think it would be illegal and that I have the answers to the test, but it doesn't often happen. It doesn't always happen that way. It sometimes goes awry. I'll quickly tell you my favorite fantasy football story of all time. I've told this before. I've written about it, and it's not even my story, but this will go to exactly what we're talking about. So my friend Matt Hasselbeck, who I worked with for many years at ESPN as well. Matt played fantasy when he was with the Seattle Seahawks, and in 2009. I know. Hang on though. This is worth it for the story. All right. Look, and so Hasselbeck in 2009 drafts himself and his former Green Bay Packer teammate Brett Favre as his quarterbacks that year. That was the first year Favre was in Minnesota. And if you remember, Favre was awesome his first year in Minnesota, NFL and fantasy wise. Week 5 of that 2009 season, Hasselbeck has a decision. Favre is playing the Rams, who were one of the worst teams in the NFL that year, and he's playing the Jaguars. Hasselbeck's playing the Jaguars, who have won 2 straight. Hasselbeck has missed the previous 2 games with a back injury. And so he decides to bench himself in fantasy and start Brett Favre. In that season, that particular game, Favre throws just 1 touchdown pass against the Vikings. He throws an interception. Adrian Peterson has a huge game. Favre finishes the 18th best quarterback in fantasy that week. Meanwhile, Matt Hasselbeck throws 4 touchdown passes, like 250 yards, finishes the week as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. The Seahawks wax the Jaguars, sitting on his own bench. Think about that. When you think about that for a second, Hasselbeck had watched all the film. He knew the game plan. He was touching the ball on every offensive play. He could audible at any moment. Matt Hasselbeck had as much control over a fantasy football game as any fantasy manager in the history of the game, and still got it wrong. Matt told me that story, and I said, I love that story, and he's given me the permission to tell it, and so I've written about it, and I've told that one before. But like, that's the ultimate story. Like, again, you think you know what's going to happen, and then it just doesn't.
So this week we had a weird play in just the NFL and in fantasy, the hook and ladder play, where Josh Allen both gets a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown on the same play, which I'm sure had fantasy implications for a lot of people now coming towards the end of the season. Can you think of a play just from personal experience or stories that you're like, how did they do that in this play? How did they get so many points? Worst case scenario, no one could have seen this coming.
I don't know that any one specific play. I mean, there's definitely been like, nutty plays over the years. I don't know if there's any one specific play that I can think of that is like, how'd they get the most points? I mean, that was sort of crazy, right? Is that Josh Allen becomes, I think, like only the 3rd player in history.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Matthew.
Go
Just
ahead.
give me a second. I'm going to have to kick him out of the room. There.
Wait, what?
Minor penalty, 2 minutes, asshole.
I mean, not for being an asshole.
Not you, Matthew.
The way that he framed it, too, is
Bad
like
question,
you had to
yeah.
cite a specific example.
Yeah.
When there's been plenty of weird plays that affected, like the Brian Westbrook play, where He takes a knee before crossing the goal line. That
Right.
had huge fantasy implications.
Yes, but give Matthew credit because he was trying to play along. I mean, he was. You knew it was a ridiculous question,
Yeah,
right?
not just
I mean,
ridiculous, though. He didn't have a good answer. And I guess he's just asking you sort of for a legendary bad beat story after you just gave one that is the most legendary one. So it becomes a bit hard to come up with whatever second place is to that particular story.
I will say, though, you mentioned that Brian Westbrook play. I wrote about this one in my book, which is there's a big league of casino owners where the buy, and this was this is 20 years ago, but there was the buy-in in that league, at least for that year, the Brian Westbrook year, was $100,000, and a 12-team league. And so I met one of the guys in that league, and he was telling me about that. And that play, if you guys remember, it was in the fantasy playoffs, and Brian Westbrook it's going against the Cowboys, and he's on his way down, and he's got a touchdown right there. And at the very last second, he takes a knee to preserve the win for the Eagles, but doesn't score the touchdown. So I talked to him, and this guy tells me, he's like, what was your reaction? And he was like down 5, and he had Westbrook, and it was his last player. So if Westbrook scores the touchdown, he wins his semifinal matchup. And he just turns to me and goes, yeah, that knee cost me $600,000.
Ouch. Ouch.
I later met Ryan Westbrook, and I told him that story, and he just laughed. He says, that guy should have called me. He goes, we could have figured, if I'd known it was going to cost that much, we could have figured something out. I asked him, I said, Brian, how often does that play come up in your life? And he goes, every single day. Every single day, somebody mentions that
Again,
play.
all of
me
it, all
and
of
how
that
it cost
sounds
them.
illegal. Pete Rose was denied the Hall of Fame for less than all these crimes
A
that
lot
Matthew
less.
Berry
I
is
mean,
out here just admitting to freely and openly.
Dan, do I need a lawyer? Should I get
You've botched this up and down. You mentioned Westbrook. It made me think of Westbrook Akine and the idea that a Titans receiver has been, he's only got 20 catches this year, but 8 are touchdowns. Can you give me a name in the history of fantasy that you most associate with sort of that kind of ridiculousness
Jesus.
I'm talking about
Another
here?
one.
Yeah,
Mike
I mean,
Williams.
honestly, it's sort of happening
Minor penalty,
at the
2
same time.
minutes, asshole.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's going through the same thing right now. I mean, he's actually getting less target share than Nick Westbrook Akine, NWI. But yeah, he's been on an unbelievable run.
Matthew, before we let you go, who's the guy that disappointed you the most this year on your fantasy team? Every year I walk around, I'm muttering some guy's name under my breath. For the second consecutive year, for me, it's Christian Watson. How about you?
Look, Tank Dell's been a bummer for me. I loved Tank Dell last year. He was one of the guys that came through for me. I liked him again this year. It hasn't worked out. He's had 2 games this year with 15 or more fantasy points. He's wide receiver 54 on a points per game basis. Single-digit fantasy points in almost 60% of his games. It's just, for whatever reason, we thought the Texans' offense would regress. We didn't think it would regress this much. And just Tank Dell just hasn't been a thing this year the way he was last year. When the injury to Diggs happened, you thought, oh, well, maybe finally now it'll be Tank Dell time. And it just hasn't worked out that way. So still love Tank Dell as a player, but fantasy-wise, it's been a massive disappointment.
All right, check out the Fantasy Football Hour with Matthew Berry. It is on Peacock. Matthew, we appreciate the time as always. Yes, sir?
Of course. I have one last question for you, Stugotz, and it's really a question for Dan. I have a question for Dan.
All right, he's in the penalty box, so.
When does Dan get out of the penalty box? Can we bring him out of the?
Yeah, we can get him out early. Yeah,
because I have an important question for him. Specific.
All right. Okay. So hold on a second because Chris just walked into the penalty box. Look at that. Look how quick it was. Dan is back now.
All right.
So it wasn't 2 minutes. Dan still owes 35 seconds. I have an important question for you before you ask your important question of Dan. Can you write a chapter in my next book? I know you're a New York Times best-selling author. What do you think?
Sure, I'd be happy to. To be honest with you, I'm going to phone that one in.
Yeah.
But because I assume that'll be how the rest of the book is gone as well. But yeah sure.
All right.
Put me down for a chapter. I'm in.
All right. Join the club, the phone club, and go ahead. Ask your question of Dan.
All right, Dan, here's my question. Earlier in the year, in my last appearance on the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz, I pitched the idea of a fantasy football league that I would play with Stugotz and the rest of the guys on the show. And so on air, Stugotz said, I love the idea. I'm in. And so Stugotz and I were texting back and forth. Took him a couple days to get back to me. And eventually he says, I'm sorry, I'm going to be bad at setting this up. Can I connect you with Chris Cody? and he'll set it up. And I said, you bet. So then Stugotz puts me on a text chain with Chris and the three of us. And I'm like, hey, Chris, let me know a good time to talk. We'll figure this out. I get blown off. Then I text again, completely ghosted. So I'm just curious, is it me or are Chris and Stugotz just terrible on text generally?
Well, I would say there are a couple of things here. Yes, though two of those people are two of the least reliable finishers we have around here in a company that prides itself on not finishing much of anything. But also, we have partnership conflicts that I believe make that impossible. And instead of doing that in your face and telling you directly, our guys just hid under their desks.
Well, I passed it along to Chris. I mean,
yeah. So you punted. But what's weird is
we should do it, though. We should do it in the shadows, since you're doing so many illegal things during this segment anyway. We should do it. We should both risk getting in trouble with our sugar daddies because we've gone into cahoots on playing dirty fantasy in the corner.
Well, the reason I went to Chris is Matthew wanted to do the draft on air, and Dan would love that. I mean,
okay, so again, all of this could have been communicated to you so that you wouldn't just have to ask me these questions in a way that embarrass all of us publicly, because I'm looking at you,
clear,
Chris
Dan,
Cody.
this is mostly about embarrassing Chris and Stugotz, not you. So please.
I can't be embarrassed.
You know what? I applaud all such efforts. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done, as always, Matthew Berry. We appreciate your time. You are in all of our fantasies.
I love you guys.
All right.
Talk soon.
We love you too. Sorry.
When it comes to my phone and apps, it's getting to be too much for me. I try to organize my apps. I try to have them in little folders. So, music, work, stuff like this. It's gotten out of hand. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm butt dialing. When that was a thing, you call someone on accident. Now what I'm doing is butt moving apps. Ooh. So I'll go on my phone and I'll notice everything's rearranged. There's everything's just because you get used to certain things, like Twitter's here, emails here, and now it's a thing where everything's off a little bit. It's like, where's my weather? My weather app just disappeared.
Your butt is holding down an icon on your homepage. It's doing the little shaky thing, and your butt is then moving it somewhere else and then pressing down again and saying done.
I'm just telling you.
So it's done being rearranged. Your butt's doing all of that.
I'm putting my phone in my pocket. I'm taking it back out, and all my apps are rearranged. And now I'm like, where's my weather? And I have to search for weather. And you search for it, it's still there. But I can't find it. I'm scrolling all my pages.
How is your butt doing all of this?
Maybe it's not my butt. It's the pocket dialing, pocket moving. It's just annoying. And I all these apps, all these folders, it's tough to my head's spinning.
Once you lose an app, it feels like it's gone forever.
And then you think you deleted it, and then you search for it, and it's still
there
in your phone. So it's like, where is it?
You can remove it from your home screen. I've done that with social media before to try to get myself to use it less. And then, of course, I'm just searching it and going to the app. It's one extra step. It's not going to change anything.
I want to hear my dad's thoughts on this. And I want to just know, in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to try to find my weather app. And I'll let you guys know if I can find it.
Please do.
Why do you have a weather app?
What?
You want to know the weather? You step outside. Why do you need a weather app?
Well, but you ask your wife. She's essentially your
same guy
weather
that
app.
complains when your wife doesn't tell you.
Okay.
I have an app, so I don't need to ask my wife.
I know, but I have a Google app, right? I go on the Google app, weather in Fort Lauderdale today.
Do you realize
and
that's
it tells
a
me.
crazy amount of steps that you have to do? You have to go on your Safari, then you have to type in what. There's just a weather app. I mean, I can't find mine, so it's actually easier.
There's also a widget now where you don't even have to open an app. You just unlock your phone and it's right there, the number.
I don't know about that.
It's just butt dialing, phone calls. You guys don't have any butt dialing in your life? You guys don't do stuff in your pocket?
My worst thing is that a lot of the time what I'll end up doing when I call people is I'll call them from my recent calls. And so then when I go to hang up, if they hang up first,
I've done that before.
I'll then accidentally not call them back, call a random person on my recent calls. And that's kind of the worst because especially if it's your recent calls, it's someone who then is almost definitely going to call you back. Yeah. And so that's one of the worst things that happens, accidentally calling your mom. Ugh.
Yeah. Imagine that. I'm a big fan of hiding apps that I rarely use. I have
I'm surprised
Apple.
you know how to hide an app.
No, I do, and I know
impressive.
I have Apple Wallet. Okay, but I hardly ever use it. I use it when UM is sending me a parking ticket for the game coming up or something. So then
that's a page 3.
Yeah, so I just search the app. I search the app. It comes right up and there, and then when I'm done with it, I disappear it again.
I'm sick of single-use apps. Why does my headphones need its own app?
Yeah.
It doesn't need, just on and off.
Yep.
That's all I need
Mhm.
from
Yes.
you. Connect to Bluetooth.
Yep.
Put a button for that. I don't need an app for you.
It's a good point. Too many
Useless.
apps.
Apps, am I right?
Yeah, too many apps.
Not enough at restaurants. Too many on your phones.
Oh, I love apps.
Oh, I love when
What's your favorite app?
I love when an app takes the full left side of the page. I don't like it like you open the menu. I don't like it when the apps are just like the top left corner. No. I want the apps.
And
to
don't
be the
call them
full
small
page.
plates. Just call them apps.
Ridiculous.
Yep. Shareable plates. No. These are apps.
I liked our Flanagan's watch party because it was all apps.
Oh yeah,
We
That's
just
how I
had
prefer a meal.
Apps.
I don't even want it to say appetizers. Apps.
I love when we order Chinese food. I know that I'm not going to have a main dish. I'm going to have like 3 apps.
What?
Yeah.
What are your 3 apps?
You're not going orange chicken, little beef
No,
and broccoli.
I hate orange chicken. What? Sometimes I'll get Mongolian beef, but that's beside the point. My apps would be spring rolls, wonton soup.
Yep, love it.
And then I love Chinese restaurant chicken wings. I got to tell you,
Yeah.
something about that
sounds
batter.
really good.
Something
But
about that
soup is
batter.
not an app.
Soup's not an app.
Correct.
No,
No.
I think
Soup's an app.
soup's
Soup's
an
a
app.
soup.
Soup's an app. Soup's an app.
Salad's not an app. Salad's a salad.
I
Soup?
consider
soups and
salad
salads
and
grouped
soup an
together.
app.
No.
But you eat them before your main dish generally.
Yeah.
They're a starter. They're not an app.
Oh, don't do this.
Oh, that's a completely
Don't do
different
this, Jeremy.
category.
I'm just saying, soups and salads are not apps. They wouldn't have their own spot in the
But they're
menu.
not
if-
starters.
I think they are. I think
They're,
they're
they're
apps.
closer to a starter than an app.
You know, Italians have it right. We need like 7 courses. Like enough of this just appetizer, main dish, dessert. I need
Yeah.
like a pasta.
You need a secondi.
I need like there's just like it's pasta time.
Yeah.
It's meat time.
I like that.
It's appetizer time. Like
Okay.
they,
I mean,
they
it's
got
basically
vegetable time.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they got it right.
Except it's all at once, which can be overwhelming.
That's a good point.
I ate too much pie. I need to go home.